sleep matters. The eraser paradox. Imagine you had an eraser that could wipe away the parts of your life you wish had never happened. In a dimly lit room, you sit at a desk with an old, leather-bound diary spread open before you. Each page is a memory written in ink. Some pages hold sweet recollections, faded photographs of laughter, love, and learned lessons. But other pages are stained with tears and regret. Your hand hovers over these darker entries with a special eraser in hand, a magical eraser capable of removing any one memory or mistake entirely from your story. What would happen if you erased one? Would your life finally feel perfect, free of that old pain, or would something unexpected vanish along with the hurt? Slowly, you tear out one painful page the day you said something you wish you hadn't, or the day you lost someone dear, or a failure that haunts you. You press the eraser gently to the page and begin to rub. The graphite of memory lifts, smudging into oblivion. At first, there's a sense of relief, as if a burden is being lifted from your chest. That awful day is gone, as though it never occurred. You close the diary, feeling strangely lighter. The room is quiet, even the air seems still, as if holding its breath. But as you rise from the desk and look around, you notice the world shift in subtle ways. The photograph on the wall of your graduation is fading at the corner. The familiar scar on your heart from that event is smoothing over. You feel different, though you can't quite put your finger on how. It's as if a piece of you has quietly disappeared into the night. The paradox of the magical eraser reveals itself gradually. By erasing an event, you have also erased all the ways it changed you. At first, it sounds wonderful to be unburdened by that one terrible memory. But consider what else that experience brought into your life. Perhaps that harsh breakup taught you the true value of kindness and set you on a path to meet a dear friend. Maybe that failure pushed you to grow more determined and resilient. Painful experiences often leave behind unexpected gift strength, wisdom, empathy, or a new direction. When you erase the event, you also erase these quiet strengths that grew from it. The eraser paradox lies in this truth. You cannot remove the pain without also removing the growth that came from that pain. Sitting back down, you flip through the altered diary. The page you erased is blank now, but so are parts of the pages that followed. The timeline of your life has gaps like missing puzzle pieces. You try to recall the friend you met in a support group after that event, but now you never went to that group because in this new reality, you never needed to. That friend's face begins to blur in your mind. Did they ever exist, or were they only woven into the tapestry of your life because of the thread you removed? The paradox deepens. By healing one wound, you've accidentally sacrificed something precious and meaningful that sprouted from it. In the dim silence, you realize that perfection a life with no scars or mistakes is not only impossible, it's paradoxically less rich and human. We often wish we could undo our deepest regrets, thinking we'd be happier without them. Yet those very regrets have carved rivers in the landscape of our character, giving shape to who we are. The more we try to forget a painful memory, the more its lessons assert themselves in hidden ways. It's like trying to smooth out a rough stone. You may wear down the jagged edges, but you also lose the unique markings that make it beautiful. Consider how our minds work when we try to suppress a thought. If someone says, "Don't think about the embarrassing moment from yesterday," suddenly, that is all you can think about. This is another face of the eraser paradox. The more desperately you attempt to erase a thought or pain, the more your mind focuses on it. By fighting the memory, you give it power. By accepting it, you let it become just one part of your story, rather than the defining chapter. Now imagine instead of erasing that page, you gently close the diary and place it back on a shelf. You light a single candle in the darkness and reflect on the painful page as part of your journey. Rather than scrub it away, you honor it for what it taught you, even if the lesson came shrouded in sorrow. In the warm glow of the candlelight, the once harsh memory softens. It becomes not a poisoned thorn in your heart, but a bittersweet reminder that you have endured and you have grown. The act of acceptance transforms the memory, almost like healing instead of erasing. The eraser paradox gently teaches that complete escape from pain can mean losing part of ourselves. Life's darkest moments are intertwined with our brightest growth. It is a paradox we live every day. We dislike the storms we pass through, yet those storms water the soil from which our future blooms. To wish them all away is to wish away the wisdom they quietly left behind. And so, as you sit in the hush of midnight contemplating the eraser in your hand, you might find yourself setting it aside. Instead, you wrap those difficult memories in understanding and place them back into the narrative of your life, exactly where they belong. In doing so, you resolve the paradox not by changing the past, but by changing how you carry it within you. With the diary closed and the eraser set down, a calm acceptance fills the room. You rise, leaving the eraser on the desk, and notice that the air feels lighter, not because you removed a part of your life, but because you accepted it. In that acceptance, there is a profound peace. The shadows on the wall seem softer now, the night more gentle. You take a deep breath and step away, knowing that every page of your story, even the ones stained by tears, has its place. As you walk forward, the paradox remains behind on the desk, a reminder that wholeness comes not from deletion but from integration of all that we've been through. The mirror paradox. It is past midnight, and you find yourself standing before a mirror in a quiet hallway. The house is still. The only sound is your gentle breathing as you gaze at your reflection. In the soft, silvered glass, a familiar face looks back at you. You raise your hand slowly, and your reflection does the same, in perfect synchrony. On the surface, nothing could be more ordinary, you and your mirror image, moving together like two dancers in a silent ballet. Yet, as you peer into your own eyes reflected back, a subtle thought stirs in your mind. Who is this person looking at me? Is the reflection really you, or just a reversed copy, a mere appearance? You notice something curious. The mirror seems to flip left and right. A freckle on your right cheek appears on the left side of the mirror image. You tilt your head and the reflection tilts in the opposite direction. This simple trick of light sparks a deeper realization what you see in the mirror is not exactly what the world sees when it looks at you. You have never actually seen yourself the way others do. You have only seen photos, recordings, and reflections. There is a whole side of you quite literally that you cannot observe directly. This is a gentle metaphor for a larger truth. We are inherently blind to certain aspects of ourselves. Consider how you perceive your own personality and actions versus how others perceive them. There are traits and flaws in each of us that we notice readily in others, but struggle to see in ourselves. Perhaps you pride yourself on being kind, yet a friend's gentle feedback reveals moments where you were aloof or harsh without realizing. It's akin to having a smudge on your face that everyone but you can see until you look in a mirror. The mirror paradox in life is that you are simultaneously the person who knows yourself best and the person who can never see yourself objectively. The more you attempt to scrutinize yourself directly, the more your perspective is skewed by your own subjective lens. Imagine your reflection could speak. In the hush of the night, you fancy for a moment that the lips in the mirror begin to move on their own, whispering truths you seldom admit. It tells you about the things you hide from others and from yourself, your secret hopes, fears, and the little lies you tell to keep your image polished. Your heart rate quickens just a bit. But the voice is calm and understanding, not cruel. It points out, "You often see in others what you refuse to see in me," suggesting that the criticisms you levy at people around you are often mirror images of your own unacknowledged traits. This idea echoes Carl Jung's insight that the irritations we find in others are reflections of ourselves, like hidden shadows outward. You blink, and the mirror is silent once more, just your own tired face staring back. The hallucination felt real, but its message lingers. When you judge someone for being selfish or careless, could it be that a part of you, deep down, harbors those same tendencies, unrecognized? The paradox is that in condemning another, you may be indirectly illuminating an unseen corner of your own soul. The mirror of life isn't just the glass on the wall. It's every person around us, every reaction we have. Each relationship is a mirror, revealing pieces of ourselves. Anger toward someone might reveal unresolved hurt in us. Admiration might expose qualities we yearn to cultivate. We seek to understand ourselves, but we often do it by looking outward only to realize we were seeing our reflection in the behaviors and responses of others. Now, consider the opposite as well. Others act as mirrors to you, but you act as a mirror to them too. How often have you tailored your behavior because you were aware of being watched or judged? Just as you cannot see your true face without a mirror, others cannot see their true selves without the reflections you provide. We are all mirrors for each other, helping reveal each other's blind spots. Yet, this too is paradoxical. We depend on external reflections to know ourselves, but those reflections are never perfectly accurate. A mirror may show you your face, but it cannot show your mind or heart. Likewise, people's perceptions of you, while insightful, can never capture the whole truth of who you are. The mirror paradox teaches a quiet humility. It reminds us that self-knowledge has limits. No matter how much you introspect, a part of you will always remain just outside your view, like the back of your head in a mirror. This isn't a flaw, it's a gentle reality of being human. To truly know ourselves, we must be willing to listen to reflections both literal and metaphorical, while understanding they are partial. We must piece together our self-image from the mirror of our own mind and the feedback mirrored by others. And we must accept that some mystery about ourselves will always persist. Think again of standing before that mirror late at night. Perhaps earlier in the day someone upset you with a thoughtless comment. Now, in the stillness, you replay the scene. The mirror offers no new answers, but in your reflection's eyes, you sense vulnerability and longing. Maybe the comment hurt, because it mirrored an insecurity already within you. You realize that the person's words were like a reflective surface too, showing you a sensitive spot in your heart. Rather than resentment, you feel a tinge of gratitude for seeing this truth. In a soft whisper to your reflection, you say, "I'm listening now." The glass before you holds only an image, but behind that image is your consciousness looking back at you. It's a loop, you observing yourself being observed. In that loop lies the paradox of self-awareness. If we chase our true self obsessively, like a dog chasing its tail, we end up running in circles. But if we sit in quiet observation, open to what the mirror and the world shows us, we may catch a genuine glimpse of who we are in an unguarded moment. For example, maybe it's in how your eyes soften when thinking of someone you love, or how they harden when you recall a regret. These are little flashes of truth reflected in the mirror of your mind. As you turn away from the mirror now, you notice you feel a little more at peace with the enigma of you. The mirror paradox isn't something to be solved completely, it's a condition to be embraced. You understand that you will never see yourself from every angle, and that's okay. Your reflection bows out with a faint smile, as if to say it will be here whenever you need to look again. You step away, knowing that to know yourself, you must sometimes trust what others reflect back to you, and other times trust that even without a perfect view, you are whole. In the darkness behind you, the mirror holds one last secret, that sometimes not seeing everything is what allows you to rest and just be. The borrowed time paradox. Picture yourself in a doctor's office on a quiet afternoon. The walls are pale blue, and a ticking clock counts seconds in the background. The doctor sits you down with a gentle but grave expression and delivers news that falls like a weight in your lap, a rare illness, and roughly 6 months to live. In that moment, the floor seems to drop away. 6 months, a blink of an eye, a single season, is all the time you have left. Stepping out of the clinic, you notice how vivid the world suddenly appears. The sky is impossibly bright, each cloud etched with heavenly detail, Every breath of air in your lungs is cooler and sweeter. Knowing the limit on your time has oddly expanded your appreciation for life. In the days that follow, you begin to live differently. All the little things that used to annoy you, the traffic jam on the way home, the long lines at the grocery store, the emails waiting for a reply, they lose their power over you. Why waste a single moment of your precious 6 months on anger or worry? Instead, you find yourself drawn to what truly matters. You call old friends just to hear their voices, take leisurely walks at sunrise to feel the world waking up, and watch the stars at night with a childlike wonder you forgot you had. Each day is a gift because it is one of your last. This urgency imbues everything with meaning. A simple cup of tea savored on the porch becomes as profound as a ceremony. Time, once taken for granted, is now treasured like the rarest jewel. This transformation is beautiful, yet it arises from tragic circumstances. Herein lies the borrowed time paradox. When we think our time is almost up, we finally start using it well, yet nothing about the time itself has changed. Those sunrises and starry nights were always there. The tea was always rich with aroma. It was your perspective that changed when you believed time was scarce. The paradox is that time only reveals its true value when we feel it slipping away. Why must a countdown force us to truly live? It's as if life is loaned to us, and when the due date is near, we suddenly pay attention to every borrowed second. Now imagine that, against all odds, the doctors call you back a month later. They tell you there was a mistake, a misdiagnosis. You're going to live after all. The horizon of your life stretches onward, undefined. Relief washes over you. Friends and family rejoice. It feels like the greatest miracle. You celebrate, you cry tears of joy, you make plans again for a future that now exists. But a curious thing happens as the weeks turn into months and the sense of urgency fades. The world starts to look normal again. Without the ticking clock of mortality sounding in your ears, you catch yourself once more getting impatient in traffic or wasting an evening on trivial distractions. The same person who lived so vividly when time was scarce now falls back into the trap of thinking time is abundant. This reversal brings the paradox into sharp focus. Before, 6 months to live made you experience an entire lifetime in that brief span. Now, the possibility of many years ahead lulls you into postponing life. How strange that a longer life can lead to less living, while a shorter life can lead to more. The borrowed time paradox shows that when time feels borrowed or finite, we maximize it. But when it feels unlimited, we often squander it. Intellectually, we all know our time is limited. No one lives forever. Yet we often behave as if tomorrow is guaranteed. We procrastinate dreams, leave words of love unspoken, assume later for what could be done or enjoyed now. Only in brushes with death do we awaken to the fragility of our existence. There is another facet to this paradox. If we truly lived every day like it was our last, it might be exhilarating but also unsustainable. You might spend all your savings, forsake long-term responsibilities, or make impulsive choices, because who cares about next year if there is no next year? But if you live as if life goes on forever, you risk not living at all, forever waiting for the right time. So we walk a delicate line, balancing the awareness of death with the continuity of life. We must plan for a future that is never promised, and savor the present as if it's all we have, because in a sense, it is. Late one evening, you sit on your bed by the window, moonlight filtering in. You recall the emotional whirlwind of thinking your life was ending. In a way, that experience taught you a secret that now threatens to slip away, that every moment counts. To remind yourself, you start a little ritual. Each night, you close your eyes and imagine for a moment that today was your last day. Not to invite sadness, but to shine a light on anything left unsaid or undone. Did you live today in a way you would be content with if it truly were your last? Were you present? Kind? Did you move in the direction of your heart's desires, even a little? Sometimes you remember that borrowed time, feeling vividly the gratitude for something as simple as a breeze on your face. You breathe in and try to recapture that state of mind voluntarily, without the need for a tragic diagnosis. You realize that in truth, all time is borrowed. Every day given to us is a day that wasn't guaranteed. Each of us is living on borrowed time from the moment we are born. We just don't see it that way until something shakes us awake. This thought isn't morbid. In fact, it can be quietly uplifting. It means that life is a gift, and our proper response is to cherish it. Outside the window, the stars still blink into existence every night, and the sun still promises to rise. The flow of time is both relentless and reassuring. You cannot stop the days from passing, but you can fill them with meaning. The borrowed time paradox reminds you gently that while you cannot extend your life indefinitely, you can widen it. A day filled with awareness and appreciation stretches farther than a week lived on autopilot. When you treat your time as precious, it expands in richness, if not in length. As you lie down and pull the blankets over your shoulders, you feel a peaceful acceptance settle in. The darkness of the room is soft and comforting now. You have made a kind of truce with time. You know it will one day run out. But until it does, you will try to greet each morning like a second chance, and each night with gratitude. In embracing your mortality, you paradoxically feel more alive than ever. There's no more borrowing or owing only living, fully and sincerely in the present that you have. The breaking bridge paradox. Imagine standing on a sturdy bridge, feeling the solid planks beneath your feet. The wind hums through the suspension cables, the water below glistening under the afternoon sun. You take a step forward, trusting in the strength of the structure to hold your weight. After all, this bridge has carried countless travelers before you. It stands tall, unwavering, unshaken. But what if, in the next moment, a crack splinters through its foundation? What if, without warning, the bridge collapses beneath you? Would you still say it was strong if it ultimately failed? This is the breaking bridge paradox. If something is strong only until it breaks, was it ever truly strong at all? Strength, we often believe, is about permanence. We call a bridge strong because it supports weight, a building strong because it withstands storms, a person strong because they endure hardships. But strength, as we think of it, is never absolute. Everything, whether stone, steel, or spiritha's, a breaking point. This paradox forces us to question whether strength is defined by endurance or by inevitability. A bridge, no matter how solid it seems, will one day wear down, its beams weakened by time, its structure betrayed by a single fracture. Does that mean it was never truly strong to begin with? Or was its strength real in the moments before its fall? The breaking bridge paradox is more than just about bridges. It speaks to everything in life relationships, beliefs, even people. Consider a friendship you once thought unbreakable. Perhaps it spanned years, built on laughter, shared secrets, and unwavering trust. Then, one day, something shifts. A betrayal, an argument, or simply time pulling you in different directions. The friendship crumbles, fading into a memory. In hindsight, you wonder, was it ever truly strong, if it could end? Or think of personal resilience. You might see yourself as unshakable, someone who has weathered every storm life has thrown at you. But one day something happens that overwhelms you. Maybe it's loss, failure, or exhaustion, creeping in after years of struggle. You break down in tears, overcome by the weight of it all. In that moment, does it mean you were never strong to begin with? Or does the fact that you held on for so long prove otherwise? This paradox makes us uncomfortable because it exposes a flaw in how we define strength. We admire things that last, believing that true strength is unyielding. But what if strength is not the absence of breaking, but the willingness to bear weight for as long as possible? A bridge does not fail the moment it collapses. It served its purpose for years, carrying countless souls across the divide. A relationship was not weak simply because it ended. It was real in the moments it thrived. And a person is not weak because they break, because strength is not about never falling, but about standing for as long as you can before the fall. Some might argue that if something has a limit, then its strength was never real. A bridge that can collapse, a friendship that can end, a person who can break does that not mean weakness, was always lurking beneath the surface. But perhaps true strength is not about defying limits, but about existing in defiance of them. Imagine a ship sailing across the ocean, its hull cutting through the waves. It is strong, built to withstand storms, and for years it does. But time and the sea are relentless, and eventually the ship sinks beneath the waves. Do we say it was never seaworthy, simply because it met its inevitable fate? Or think of an old oak tree, its roots gripping the earth, its branches stretching toward the sky. It has stood through decades of storms, unbowed by wind and rain. But one day, a great storm arrives, stronger than all before it, and the mighty tree finally falls. Was it never strong, simply because it could not stand forever? The breaking bridge paradox whispers a truth we often resist. Nothing lasts forever, not even the strongest things we know. But does that make them meaningless? Does the bridge that carries 1,000 travelers lose its value because it will one day collapse? Does the love that shaped your life become worthless because it didn't last a lifetime? Perhaps, instead of defining strength by permanence, we should redefine it by purpose. The bridge was strong, not because it never fell, but because, for a time, it held firm. The friendship was strong, not because it lasted forever, but because, in the moments that mattered, it was real. A person is strong, not because they never break, but because they endure, even knowing they might one day fall. And in that realization, the paradox shifts. Strength, then, is not measured in eternity, but in existence. It is not about being unbreakable, but about standing, even when you know you might eventually fall. It is about holding together for however long you can before time and wear and life take their toll. As you stand on the bridge, looking at the cracks forming beneath your feet, you realize something profound. The bridge has carried countless others before you. It may not last forever, but it lasted long enough, and in that moment it was strong. And so are you. The empty jar paradox. A simple glass jar sits on a wooden table in front of you. Its surface is smooth, transparent, and untouched. You lift it, turning it in your hands, feeling its cool weight. It is empty, completely void of anything, or so it seems. But is it really empty? Or is it full of something unseen? This is the empty jar paradox. Is something ever truly empty if it still holds space itself? At first glance, the answer seems obvious. An empty jar is just that empty. But the more you think about it, the more uncertain you become. If it holds nothing, why does it still have weight? If it contains no substance, why can you still see the air inside? Can something ever be truly empty, or is emptiness itself just another kind of presence? The paradox challenges our perception of nothingness. We often think of empty as an absence, a void, a lack of something. But even what we call empty is still filled with something we cannot see. Inside the jar, there is air particles too small to notice, but undeniably there. If you sealed the jar and removed all the air, creating a vacuum, would it then be empty? Or would it still hold space, potential, the ability to be filled once more? This simple thought experiment extends far beyond the jar. It applies to our minds, our hearts, and even the universe itself. Think about a moment when you have felt empty. Maybe you lost something, there's someone that once made your world feel full. A relationship ended, a dream faded, or life took a turn that left you feeling hollow. You looked inside yourself and saw nothing but a vast echoing void. But were you truly empty? Perhaps what you called emptiness was actually space for new things to come, new experiences to fill you, new emotions waiting to take shape. Just like the jar, the absence of something does not mean there is nothing there. Consider a blank canvas. To an untrained eye, it is nothing more than an empty surface. But to an artist, it holds limitless potential. Every masterpiece begins with emptiness. Every great idea is born in the silence before thought. Every possibility exists in the space where nothing yet resides. This paradox also speaks to the way we understand loss. When something is taken away, whether a person, a goal, or a sense of purpose, we feel as if we are left with nothing. But in that nothingness, something remains, the possibility of renewal. Imagine walking through a grand old house, its rooms empty, its furniture long gone. The space feels abandoned, silent, but the air inside those walls still holds memorous the laughter that once filled the halls, the footsteps that once echoed on the floors. Just because something is gone does not mean nothing is left behind. The empty jar paradox is present in the vastness of the universe itself. Look up at the night sky between the stars. There is an immense darkness, a void that seems like endless nothingness. But that space is not truly empty. It is filled with unseen forces, with energy, with the silent pulse of the cosmos expanding outward. Even in the vast stretches of what we call empty space, something remains. The paradox extends to the way we define fulfillment. We often believe that to be complete, we must be constantly filled with possessions, achievements, relationships. But what if emptiness is not something to fear, but something to embrace? What if being empty allows us to receive, to grow, to transform? Consider a cup. If it is always full, nothing new can enter. Only when it is emptied can it be refilled with fresh water, new flavors, new possibilities. The same is true for us. Sometimes we must let go, must allow ourselves to be empty for a while, so that we can make space for something new. Perhaps the fear of emptiness is simply the fear of the unknown, the fear that what is left behind will not be enough. But the paradox suggests that emptiness is never truly nothing. It is always something, even if that something is just potential waiting to unfold. Sitting at the table, you stare at the jar again. It looks the same as before, transparent, hollow, waiting. But now you see it differently. It is not empty. It is ready. And so are you. The missing piece paradox. You sit on the floor, a puzzle spread out before you. The picture is almost complete, an intricate landscape with winding rivers and towering mountains, but one piece is missing. You search for it, checking under the table, between the couch cushions, even retracing your steps from when you first opened the box, but it's nowhere to be found. Without that final piece, the puzzle feels incomplete. Your eyes are drawn to the empty space, the small gap that interrupts the otherwise perfect image. The missing piece, though tiny, seems larger than all the others combined, because it represents absence. You wonder, if even one part is missing, is the puzzle still whole? This is the missing piece paradox. When something is incomplete, is it any less real? We often think of completeness as an essential quality of something's existence. A finished book, a full deck of cards, an unbroken circle, these feel satisfying because they are whole. But when something is unfinished, fractured, or missing a part, we struggle with its identity. Is a puzzle with one missing piece still a puzzle? Is a person who has lost something still the same person? The paradox extends beyond simple objects and into our lives. At some point, we all feel as if we are missing something. Maybe it's a dream we didn't achieve, a relationship that ended too soon, or a path we never took. This missing piece lingers in our minds, making us question our own completeness. If we had chosen differently, if we had held on, if we had found that missing part, would we be whole? Consider an old photograph. It's torn at the edges, a small section missing from one side. The moment it captures is still there, the expressions of the people frozen in time. Yet something about it feels incomplete. But does that missing piece take away the meaning of the memory? Or does it, in some strange way, add to it? The paradox challenges our perception of loss. When we lose something, we tend to focus on the absence rather than what remains. We see the missing piece instead of the nearly finished picture. But what if the gaps in our lives don't make us incomplete? What if they are part of our shape, part of what defines us? Imagine a sculpture with a deliberate gap, a missing hand, a fractured wing. The absence draws attention to itself. Yet the artwork is still powerful, still moving. The missing part does not erase the beauty of what is there. In fact, it might make it even more compelling. This paradox is deeply tied to the way we understand ourselves. We collect experiences, relationships, and knowledge, piecing together an identity like a puzzle, but no one ever truly feels finished. There is always something more we could learn, something more we could become. The illusion of a perfect, complete self is just that, an illusion. Think about a melody. A song does not lose its beauty if one note is missing. It might sound different, unexpected, even unresolved, but it still carries emotion, still has depth. In the same way, our lives are not less meaningful because they contain gaps. The paradox also applies to nostalgia and regret. We often look back at our past and fixate on what we lost, the roads we didn't take, the moments that slipped away. We tell ourselves that if we could only go back and find that missing piece, we would finally feel complete. But perhaps the search itself is part of the journey. Maybe we were never meant to be whole in the way we imagine. In Japanese philosophy, there is a concept called wabi-sabi, which embraces imperfection and incompleteness as part of beauty. A cracked bowl, an unfinished poem, a fleeting moment, these are not failures, but testaments to the nature of existence. Nothing lasts forever, nothing remains untouched, and yet everything still holds meaning. You sit back and look at the puzzle again. The missing piece is still gone, the gap still visible. But something has shifted. Instead of focusing on what isn't there, you take in the beauty of what is the colors, the patterns, the nearly completed picture. Maybe wholeness isn't about having every piece in place. Maybe it's about seeing the value in what remains. The stranger paradox. You wake up one morning, shuffle to the mirror, and pause. The person staring back at you seems familiar, yet slightly different. Maybe it's the way the light catches your features, or how your expression lingers a moment longer than expected. There's something strange about the reflection, not in a haunting way, but in a quiet, unsettling way, as if the person looking back is almost someone else. This is the stranger paradox. If we are constantly changing our thoughts, our beliefs, our personality, at what point do we become a stranger to ourselves? We like to believe we know who we are. We tell ourselves stories about our past, stringing together memories that define our identity. But think back to the person you were 5 years ago. Would they recognize the choices you've made, the beliefs you've adopted, the emotions that have reshaped you? If you met your past self today, would you even get along? Now, look ahead. 5 years from now, you will have changed again. You might hold different opinions, laugh at different jokes, wear a different style. If time keeps molding you into someone new, then who, exactly, are you? The paradox lies in the idea that you are always yourself, yet never the same person. There is no single version of you, just a fluid, ever-evolving identity that shifts with experience. It's like a river, always flowing, always changing, yet still called by the same name. Consider this. If you woke up tomorrow with no memory of who you were, would you still be you? Imagine losing all your past experiences, all the stories you've told yourself about who you are. Without them, what remains? Is your identity just a collection of memories, or is there something deeper, something constant? Neuroscientists have studied how the brain rewires itself, how our personality traits shift over time, how memories fade and reshape themselves with every retelling. The truth is, you are not the same person you were 10 years ago, not physically, not mentally, not emotionally. The cells in your body regenerate, your perspectives evolve, and your experiences rewrite the very core of how you see the world. Yet, despite all these changes, you still feel like you. There is a strange paradox in the way we cling to a sense of self while constantly becoming someone new. If you place two photos of yourself, one from childhood, one from today side by side, the difference is obvious. But day by day, the change is so subtle you barely notice it. Perhaps identity is like a book. Each day adds a new page, altering the story slightly. A few chapters in, you might hardly recognize the beginning, but that doesn't mean it wasn't part of the same story. The past versions of you still exist in the pages you've turned, even if they no longer resemble the person you are now. This paradox also extends beyond personal identity. Think about old friendships. People you once shared everything with can become distant strangers over time. The conversations that once lasted for hours may now feel forced. The common ground once so solid now covered in cracks. Did they change? Did you? Or is it simply the nature of existence that no two people remain aligned forever? It can be unsettling to realize that nothing stays the same, not even the person living in your own skin. But maybe that's not something to fear. Maybe it's something to embrace. Change means growth. It means that you are not trapped by past mistakes, not defined by old fears, not limited to being the person you once were. The stranger paradox reminds us that life is an unfolding journey, and we are travelers with no fixed destination. And so, you stand before the mirror once more, looking into the eyes of a person you are still getting to know. They are a stranger in some ways, familiar in others. But maybe that's the beauty of it, you get to meet yourself again and again, with each passing day. The last drop paradox. You stand at the shoreline, watching the ocean stretch endlessly before you. Waves roll in, crashing and dissolving into foam before retreating back into the vast blue expanse. You reach down and scoop a handful of water, letting it slip between your fingers. It's impossible to hold on to, yet it was, for a moment, yours. Now, it is returned to where it came from, indistinguishable from the rest of the sea. This is the last drop paradox. If you remove a single drop from the ocean, does the ocean change? And if you continue to remove drop after drop, at what point does the ocean stop being the ocean? It's a question of boundaries, of where something begins and where it ends. You might say that one drop is insignificant, that the ocean remains unchanged. But what if you keep taking more? 10 drops? 100? 1,000,000,000? Eventually, what was once an ocean becomes something less. Yet pinpointing the exact moment when the transition happens is impossible. The paradox can be seen everywhere in life. Imagine a towering sand dune in the desert. If you take away one grain of sand, it's still a dune. Take away another, then another, and it remains unchanged. But if you continue, grain by grain, there will come a point where what was once a dune is now just a flat stretch of desert. But when? Which exact grain of sand made the difference? The last drop paradox forces us to confront the way we define things. Our minds like to categorize the ocean, river, lake, puddle. But nature does not always give us clear boundaries. Everything flows, everything changes, yet we insist on drawing invisible lines. Now, think about yourself. Every day, tiny changes occur within you, new experiences, shifting thoughts, microscopic biological processes. You are not the same person you were 5 years ago, nor the same person you will be 5 years from now. But where is the dividing line? Which exact day did you become this version of yourself? This paradox extends to relationships too. A friendship does not break in an instant. It fades over time, through forgotten messages, missed calls, growing distances. At some point, the person you once spoke to daily becomes a stranger, but was there a single moment when that change occurred? If you could isolate the last drop, the final time you spoke before everything changed, Would it really be the moment that ended it, or was the change happening all along? Consider memories. You might recall a childhood event vividly, but over the years, the details blur. Some parts vanish entirely, leaving only fragments behind. When does a memory become too faded to be called a memory at all? The last drop paradox also challenges the way we think about loss. When someone passes away, they are gone all at once. Yet the loss is often felt in small moments: the last conversation, the last shared meal, the last time you saw their face. But what about all the other moments that led to that? The slow aging, the imperceptible weakening of time. Was there ever a single last drop that made their absence real? Or was it an accumulation of 1,000 smaller losses? Philosophers have long debated the implications of this paradox. It belongs to a class of puzzles known as sorites. Paradoxes, questions that reveal the difficulty of defining when something changes from one state to another. The same paradox applies to the concept of wealth. If you have a pile of coins and remove them one by one, when does it stop being a pile? The answer is elusive because our language struggles with gradual changes. But beyond philosophy, the last drop paradox has a deeply personal meaning. It reminds us that change is rarely sudden. Whether it's personal growth, the fading of a love once cherished, or the passage of time itself, transformation happens so gradually that we often don't notice until we look back and realize how far we have drifted. And yet, the paradox also holds a lesson in presence. If one drop makes no difference to the ocean, then it is just as true that every drop is part of it. A single drop may seem insignificant, but the ocean is made of nothing but drops. The same applies to life. Every moment you live, no matter how small, is a drop in the ocean of your existence. Each second, each conversation, each decision alone, they may seem minor, but together they form the vast, flowing experience of your life. Perhaps, then, the answer to the last drop paradox is not in pinpointing the moment of change, but in realizing that change is constant, inevitable, and beautiful. You cannot hold on to the ocean, but you can stand at its edge, feeling the waves against your skin, knowing that even as the water slips away, new waves will always come. And so, you step away from the shoreline, leaving footprints in the damp sand. The tide will wash them away soon enough. But for now, they remain, a quiet reminder that, like the ocean itself, you are ever changing, yet always whole. The Vanishing Choice Paradox. You stand at a crossroads, staring at two diverging paths. One leads into a sunlit valley, the other into a shadowed forest. You hesitate, knowing that whichever path you choose, the other will disappear from your reach. The choice is yours at least. It feels that way. But as you take a step forward, a strange thought lingers in your mind. Did you ever truly have a choice, or was your decision inevitable from the start? This is the Vanishing Choice Paradox. The moment you make a decision, all the other possibilities cease to exist, vanishing into the realm of what could have been. And yet, if every choice is erased the moment it is made, did you ever have real freedom, or was the outcome always meant to be? Consider the moments in life where a single decision shaped your future. The school you attended, the job you accepted, the city you moved to, the person you chose to love. Every choice you've ever made has eliminated countless other possibilities. You could have been someone else, lived somewhere else, built an entirely different life. But you are here, now, and all the alternate versions of yourself exist only as ghosts of paths untaken. The paradox deepens when we realize how little control we seem to have over the circumstances that shape our choices. Were you always going to make the decisions you did? If you trace back every factor: your upbringing, the people around you, the random encounters that nudged you one way instead of another, do you see a pattern that makes your choices feel inevitable? Imagine rewinding time to a moment before you made a crucial decision. Would you make the same choice again? Logic tells you that if all conditions were exactly the same, you probably would. But if that's true, then was your choice ever truly free, or was it simply a result of everything leading up to it? The vanishing choice paradox touches on the age-old debate between free will and determinism. If our decisions are shaped by past experiences, personality, emotions, and even unconscious biases, then how much of what we call choice is actually within our control? And if every choice vanishes the moment it is made, never to be tested against alternatives, how do we ever know if it was truly ours to make? But perhaps the paradox isn't just about the choices we make, it's also about the ones we don't. Regret often stems from the belief that we could have chosen differently. We replay moments in our minds, imagining alternate outcomes, thinking, if only I had done this instead. But those imagined choices are illusions. They never existed outside of our thoughts. Once the moment passed, so did the ability to choose anything else. Consider the path of an artist who chooses to dedicate their life to painting. They will never know what could have happened if they had pursued music instead. But does that mean they lost something real? Or does it mean that by committing to one path fully, they made that path the only reality that matters? This paradox appears even in the smallest, most ordinary moments. Imagine walking into a cafe, glancing at the menu, and deciding to order a coffee instead of tea. The moment you speak your order, the choice disappears. No longer exists as an option in your reality. Did you truly choose coffee, or did you just follow the chain of habits, preferences, and impulses that led you there? The paradox also has a psychological dimension. Studies in decision-making suggest that the more choices we have, the harder it is to commit to one. Psychologists call this the paradox of choice, the idea that too many options create anxiety rather than freedom. But once a choice is made, all other options cease to matter. If they no longer exist, does it make sense to regret them? Yet, despite everything, we feel choice deeply. We agonize over it, fear it, and celebrate it. We build our lives around the belief that we are in control of our decisions. Even if every choice we make erases other possibilities, what matters is that in that fleeting moment, before the choice disappears, we stood at the crossroads and decided for ourselves. Perhaps the vanishing choice paradox is not meant to haunt us, but to liberate us. If the past can never be undone, then regret serves no purpose. The life you are living now is the only one that exists, shaped by every choice that has already vanished. Instead of mourning the lost possibilities, we can embrace the path we have chosen fully, knowing that it is real because we made it so. One day, you might find yourself looking back, wondering about the roads not taken. But instead of dwelling on what could have been, you smile. Because in this moment, in this version of reality that you have shaped with your choices, you are here, and that is enough. The silent paradox. Imagine you are in a vast, empty field at midnight. The wind is still, the air is thick, and not a single sound exists. You listen harder, expecting something, perhaps the rustling of grass, the distant howl of a wolf, or the faint hum of your own breath. But there is nothing, a complete, consuming silence. And yet, the more you listen, the louder this silence seems to grow, pressing in on you like an invisible force. This is the silent paradox, the idea that true silence is never truly silent. The more we seek silence, the more aware we become of the sounds that fill our own heartbeat, the ringing in our ears, the subtle movements of our body. The absence of noise does not bring peace. It amplifies everything we usually ignore. Consider the experience of stepping into an anechoic chamber, a room designed to absorb all sound, removing even the faintest echoes. At first, you feel the stillness, the quiet, like a blanket wrapped around you. But after a few minutes, the silence transforms. You hear the inner workings of your own body, the blood rushing through your veins, the clicking of your joints, the faint hum of your nervous system. The sound of silence becomes overwhelming, even deafening. Some people cannot stay in such chambers for long. The lack of external noise forces them to confront the inescapable sounds within. And yet, silence is something we crave. After a long, exhausting day, we long for a quiet moment to retreat from the noise of the world. We seek it in meditation, in nature, in the stillness of an early morning before the world wakes up. But when we finally find it, we discover that silence is never empty. The mind, left alone in the quiet, fills the space with its own noise. Thoughts grow louder, memories resurface, anxieties whisper where words once stood. Silence, instead of being restful, becomes a mirror reflecting everything we have been avoiding. The paradox extends beyond physical silence. It reaches into the silence between people. Consider the tension in a room when two people who once shared laughter now sit in wordless distance. The silence between them is not peaceful. It is heavy, charged with unspoken words and unresolved emotions. Silence, in this way, is never neutral. It is filled with meaning, shaped by what is missing. Think of the silence in a courtroom when a jury is about to deliver a verdict, or the hush before a concert begins, the moment just before an athlete makes their final move. These silences are electric, not empty. They hold within them anticipation, uncertainty, expectation. Even in the absence of sound, something is speaking. The silent paradox also plays out in human communication. We often associate silence with peace, yet in many cases, silence is the loudest response of all. When someone stops speaking to us, their silence can feel more powerful than words. It can be a message of disappointment, of rejection, of finality. In relationships, unspoken words often carry more weight than the ones said out loud. Imagine a moment of deep grief. A loved one sits beside you, saying nothing. Their silence does not mean they do not care. It does not mean they are absent. In that silence, they are offering presence, a quiet companionship that speaks louder than any words of comfort could. In some cases, silence is the purest form of connection. The paradox also finds its place in art, music, and storytelling. A painter leaves empty space on a canvas, and that emptiness becomes part of the artwork. A musician pauses between notes, and that pause shapes the melody, giving it rhythm and meaning. A writer withholds details in a story, letting the reader fill in the gaps with their own imagination. Silence, in these cases, is not an absent sight, is a crucial part of expression. But perhaps the most haunting aspect of the silent paradox is how we react to silence within ourselves. In a world filled with distractions, phones buzzing, music playing, conversations flowing, we rarely experience true internal silence. The moment we do, we often rush to fill it. Why is this? Why do we fear silence as much as we seek it? Perhaps because silence forces us to face ourselves. In the absence of noise, there are no barriers between us and our thoughts. We must confront the things we usually drown out: the fears, the doubts, the unresolved emotions lurking beneath the surface. Silence strips away the distractions and leaves us alone with our own minds. But what if we embraced this paradox instead of fearing it? What if we allowed silence to be not an absence, but an invitation to listen, to reflect, to understand, to accept that silence is not empty, but full of life in a different form? Imagine sitting in the stillness of a forest at dawn, hearing nothing but the soft rhythm of your breath and the distant murmur of the earth waking up. Imagine standing in an empty church, the air heavy with the silence of centuries of prayers. Imagine closing your eyes in the middle of the night, listening not for sound, but for the quiet presence of existence itself. The silent paradox reminds us that true silence does not exist. Even in the quietest moments, life hums beneath the surface, speaking in ways we do not always recognize. Silence is not the absence of sound, it is a language of its own. And so, as you lie in bed, letting the weight of the night settle around you, listen to the silence. not as emptiness, but as presence, not as nothingness, but as possibility. In the quiet, your thoughts may rise, your heartbeat may echo, your mind may stir, but let them. Let the silence speak, because even in the stillest moments, you are never truly alone. The letting go paradox. Imagine holding onto a handful of sand. At first, the grains sit gently in your palm, resting easily, shaped by the curve of your fingers. But then, a strange thing happens. You squeeze tighter, afraid to lose even a single grain. And yet, the more pressure you apply, the more the sand escapes, slipping through the spaces between your fingers until, eventually, you are left with almost nothing. This is the letting go paradox. The idea that the harder we try to hold on to something, whether it's love, happiness, control, or even time itself, the more elusive it becomes. The more desperately we cling, the faster it slips away. And yet, when we loosen our grip, when we allow things to come and go naturally, they often stay longer than we ever expected. Consider love. Many people fear losing those they care about, and in their fear, they tighten their grip. They become controlling, possessive, or anxious, thinking that by holding on tightly, they can prevent loss. But love does not flourish under a tight grip. It suffocates. The healthiest relationships are not those built on control, but on freedom. When we stop trying to possess love, when we let go of our need to force it to stay, it often deepens and grows. The paradox is that letting go does not mean losing. It means trusting. Trusting that what is meant for us will remain, and that what leaves was never ours to hold forever. Think about happiness. People chase it relentlessly, believing it exists somewhere ahead of them, perhaps in a dream job, a perfect relationship, or a future where everything finally falls into place. They grasp at happiness like it's a prize to be won, exhausting themselves in the pursuit. But happiness, like a butterfly, is easiest to catch when we stop chasing it. The more we fixate on achieving it, the more it slips from our grasp. Real happiness is found in presence, not pursuit. It's not something we acquire, but something we notice. It exists in the quiet moments, in the spaces between our grand plans. It is not about what we have, but about how we experience what is already here. The letting go paradox teaches that happiness arrives not when we demand it, but when we allow it. Control is another illusion we struggle with. We want certainty, stability, and predictability. We make plans, set expectations, and build structures to keep life in order. But control is fragile. The moment we think we have secured it, something unexpected happens, a setback, a loss, an event beyond our influence. Letting go of control is terrifying because it requires trust in the unknown. But those who release their need to control everything often find something surprising: peace. The paradox is that when we stop trying to control every outcome, life begins to flow more smoothly. By accepting that we cannot predict or manipulate everything, we become more adaptable, more present, and ultimately more at ease. Time itself is perhaps the greatest teacher of the letting go paradox. We try to hold on to the past, reliving old memories, regretting lost moments, or wishing we could rewrite history. But the past is like a river. It moves in one direction, and no amount of longing can reverse its flow. At the same time, we grasp for the future, believing that if we just reach a certain milestone, we will finally be at peace. We build expectations and attach our happiness to things that haven't yet happened, only to find that when we arrive, the satisfaction is fleeting and new desires take their place. But when we let go, we release the weight of the past and the worry of the future. Something miraculous happens. We arrive fully in the present. And in this present moment, we find that we have everything we need. Think of a deep breath. When we inhale, we take in what we need. But if we try to hold on to that breath forever, refusing to exhale, it turns into discomfort, even pain. The breath only nourishes us because we release it, and in that release, we create space for the next breath, and the next, sustaining us without effort. This is the rhythm of life itself, holding on, letting go, and trusting that what we need will return. But letting go is not easy. It is not passive. It requires deep courage. It means surrendering our illusions of control, trusting in the unknown, and accepting that loss is an inevitable part of life. Letting go is not about giving up, it is about making space. Space for new experiences, new love, new possibilities. And yet, the paradox remains. The moment we stop clinging, the moment we release our desperate grip, the things we once chased often find their way back to us. Love, happiness, peace, time, they do not belong to those who clutch at them, but to those who embrace them lightly, without fear of loss. So, as you lie in bed, letting the darkness of the night settle around you, think about the things you are holding on to too tightly. Are they slipping through your fingers? Are they weighing you down? What might happen if you loosened your grip, if you trusted that what is meant for you will stay, and what is not will make space for something new? The letting go paradox does not ask you to abandon hope, dreams, or effort. It simply reminds you that life flows more easily when you do not resist it, that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is surrender. And, as sleep begins to take you, feel yourself exhaling, releasing, making space for the unknown. There is nothing to force, nothing to grasp in this moment, waiting for you to let go and fall into its quiet embrace. The overflowing cup paradox. Imagine a cup sitting before you, simple and unassuming. You begin to pour water into it, watching as the liquid rises to the brim. Then, something curious happens. You keep pouring. At first, the water trembles at the edge, defying gravity for a split second. But then, inevitably, it spills over, cascading down the sides, forming a puddle on the table. No matter how much more you pour, the cup cannot hold anymore. This is the overflowing cup paradox. The more we try to fill ourselves, whether with knowledge, success, possessions, or experiences, the less capacity we have to hold anything of real value. In our endless pursuit of more, we often find ourselves drowning instead of fulfilled. Think of a scholar who dedicates their entire life to accumulating knowledge. They read every book, study every discipline, and consume endless streams of information. And yet, the more they learn, the more overwhelmed they become. Their mind, once open and curious, becomes cluttered, burdened by the sheer weight of all they now carry. They have no space left to truly think, reflect, or appreciate what they already know. The paradox is that by continuously filling our minds, we risk losing the ability to absorb anything new. True wisdom does not come from hoarding knowledge, but from knowing when to pause, process, and let go of what no longer serves us. The mind, like a cup, must be emptied before it can be filled again. Consider success. Many people chase achievement with relentless ambition, believing that if they just reach the next milestone, they will finally feel satisfied. But success is deceptive. Accomplishment leads to another goal, another standard to surpass. The moment one mountain is climbed, another appears in the distance. The more success one accumulates, the more pressure builds. There is no room to savor victories because the cup is already overflowing with new responsibilities, expectations, and fears of losing what was gained. What was once a dream becomes a burden, leaving little space for joy. The paradox reveals that true success is not about endlessly filling the cup, but about knowing when it is full and allowing oneself to rest. The same applies to material wealth. A person might accumulate vast riches, believing that more money, more possessions, and more luxuries will bring happiness. But beyond a certain point, wealth ceases to add value. It becomes a weight. A mansion with endless rooms cannot make one feel at home. A wardrobe filled with clothes does not cure the feeling of emptiness inside. We see this paradox play out in everyday life. Consider the way we consume entertainment. We binge-watch shows, scroll through endless feeds, and consume content at a rate faster than we can process. Yet, despite the overload, we feel unsatisfied. The more we try to entertain ourselves, the less entertained we become. Or think of relationships. Some people seek to surround themselves with as many friends, acquaintances, and social connections as possible, believing that a full life means a crowded life. But true connection is not about the number of people in our circle, it is about the depth of our interactions. A single deep conversation can be more fulfilling than 100 shallow ones. The overflowing cup paradox teaches us a profound lesson. More is not always better. Sometimes it is in the act of letting go that we find what we are truly seeking. When we stop trying to fill every empty space, we allow what matters to settle in. In Eastern philosophy, there is a famous Zen story of a master and a student. The student, eager to learn, approaches the master, claiming to know much already but wanting more wisdom. The master invites the student to tea and begins pouring. The cup fills, reaches the brim, and then overflows. The student watches in horror as the tea spills onto the floor. "Stop! The cup is full!" the student exclaims. The master smiles. "Exactly," he says. "You are like this cup already full. Until you empty yourself, you cannot receive anything new." This is the essence of the paradox. Our modern world tells us that we must always be achieving, consuming, and accumulating. We fear emptiness, believing it to be a sign of lack. But in truth, an empty cup is not useless, it is ready to be filled with something meaningful. So how do we apply this paradox to our own lives? First, we must recognize when our cups are full. Are we endlessly chasing success without appreciating where we are? Are we consuming information without pausing to reflect? Are we filling our homes, our schedules, and our minds with so much that we leave no space for peace? Second, we must learn the art of emptying. This does not mean abandoning our pursuits or giving up on goals, but rather creating balance. It means taking time to rest between achievements, allowing our minds to breathe between learning, and appreciating what we already have before seeking more. Third, we must redefine fulfillment. The richest person is not the one who has the most, but the one who feels they have enough. The most knowledgeable person is not the one who knows everything, but the one who understands what is truly important. The happiest person is not the one who never stops seeking joy, but the one who allows joy to arise naturally, without force. As you lie in bed tonight, take a deep breath and imagine your own cup. What is it filled with? Is it overflowing with noise, with worries, with endless tasks? Or is there space for quiet, for reflection, for the simple joys of being alive? The overflowing cup paradox reminds us that emptiness is not a flaw, but a gift. It is in the space between things that life happens. The pauses in music make the melody. The gaps between words give meaning to sentences, and the stillness within us allows us to truly experience the world. So tonight, let go of the need to fill every moment. Trust that you have enough. Allow yourself the luxury of emptiness, and in that space, you may find something far more valuable than anything you were trying to add. The self-writing book paradox. Imagine a book that writes itself. A book where the words appear on the pages without an author, without a guiding hand, without a conscious mind shaping its narrative. It fills its own pages, unfolding stories and ideas, yet no one is there to direct the ink. If such a book existed, would it truly be self-written? Or would it merely be a product of unseen influences, shaped by forces beyond its control? This is the essence of the self-writing book paradox. If every thought, action, and belief we have is influenced by something else, do we ever truly create anything original? Or are we merely pages being filled by the world around us? Consider the stories we tell. When an artist paints, when a musician composes, when a writer crafts a novel, are they creating from nothing? Or are they merely arranging echoes of things they have already seen, heard, and felt? A writer might believe they are weaving a unique tale, but their language, ideas, and inspirations are all drawn from the world around them, the books they have read, the experiences they have lived, the conversations they have absorbed. Every creative act seems to have a lineage, a history of influences. Take the example of a poet sitting in a quiet cafe, scribbling lines of verse in a notebook. They believe they are capturing something deeply personal, something new. But where did their words come from? Perhaps their choice of phrasing was shaped by a novel they read years ago. Perhaps the rhythm of their writing mimics a song they heard as a child. Perhaps the emotions they express were planted by a conversation with a stranger that morning. The poet believes they are writing their own book, but in truth, they are piecing together borrowed fragments from the world. This paradox challenges the idea of originality. If everything we create is influenced by something else, can anything ever truly be called our own? Think about your own thoughts and beliefs. The way you see the world has been shaped by countless factors: your upbringing, the books you have read, the media you consume, the people you interact with. You may feel like an independent thinker, but how many of your ideas are truly yours? If you had been born in a different time, a different culture, raised by different parents, surrounded by different influences, would you still believe what you believe now? It is unsettling to consider that our minds, like self-writing books, might not be writing their own stories as freely as we imagine. Instead, they might be filled by the ink of history, the narratives of society, the echoes of voices we don't even realize are shaping us. There is another layer to this paradox: the illusion of free will. We often believe that we are making independent choices, crafting our own path, deciding our own future. But what if our choices are simply the sum of our past experiences, the patterns we have inherited, the scripts that have been written before us? What if, like a book that writes itself, we are simply playing out a story that has already been set in motion? Imagine a river carving its way through the land. From a distance, it looks as if it is freely choosing its course. But in reality, its path is determined by the landscape, the slopes and valleys that direct its flow. It cannot simply decide to turn left when a mountain stands in its way. It follows the natural contours, shaped by forces beyond its control. Are we the same? Do we believe we are making choices when, in reality, we are merely following the contours of our past? The books we read, the words we hear, the beliefs we inherit, are they shaping us more than we realize? Yet, despite this unsettling thought, there is beauty in the paradox. If everything is interconnected, if every story is linked to every other, then creation is not about absolute originality, but about recombination. Just as a chef does not invent new ingredients but combines existing ones into something unique, we do the same with ideas, art, and identity. We may not be writing from nothing, but we are still shaping something new with what we have inherited. Consider a great musician. They did not invent sound. They did not create the instruments they play. Even the melodies they compose are built upon the musical structures that came before them. But does that make their work any less meaningful? Of course not. Their music is a reflection of everything they have absorbed, yet it is uniquely theirs. Or think of language itself. Every sentence you speak is built from words that existed before you were born. Yet, the way you arrange them, the way you express yourself, is entirely your own. The words may not be new, but the meaning behind them is. The self-writing book paradox reminds us that influence is not a weakness. It is a thread that connects us to the past, to each other, to the entire human experience. If a book writes itself, it does so not in isolation, but through the unseen forces that shape its pages. Likewise, we are not solitary authors of our lives, but participants in a vast, ongoing story. So, does this mean we lack control over our own narratives? Not necessarily. Awareness of the paradox allows us to take a more active role in our own stories. Once we recognize that we are shaped by influences, we can choose which influences we allow into our lives. We can curate the books we read, the ideas we absorb, the people we surround ourselves with. We may not be able to write our story from scratch, but we can shape its direction. As you lie in bed tonight, consider the words filling the pages of your own life. Are they written by you, or are they echoes of the world around you? Perhaps both are true. Perhaps there is no need to struggle for absolute originality. Perhaps the beauty of life is not in writing a book from nothing, but in weaving a narrative from all the stories that came before us. And perhaps, just perhaps, the paradox is not a contradiction but a reminder that even if we are shaped by the world, the way we arrange the pieces, way we tell our story makes it uniquely our own. The echo paradox. Somewhere deep in the mountains, you stand at the edge of a vast canyon. You take a deep breath and call out a single word, maybe your name, maybe something meaningless. For a moment, silence lingers in the air, and then, seconds later, the sound returns, bouncing back at you in fragments, distorted yet familiar. Your voice once spoken is no longer yours alone. It now belongs to the canyon, to the wind, to the walls that carry it forward. This is the echo paradox. When a sound, an idea, or even a person's influence continues to ripple long after the original source is gone, are they still present in some form? If something can be heard, remembered, or felt even after its source has vanished, has it ever truly disappeared? Imagine the words you speak in daily life, your conversations with friends, the advice you give, the stories you tell. Once spoken, your words enter the minds of others. They may repeat them later, passing them on like an echo traveling through time. A kind word you spoke to a stranger might be something they repeat to someone else, who then repeats it to another. Long after you have forgotten what you said, your words could still be moving through the world, shaping actions, influencing lives. But if your words live on beyond you, do they still belong to you? At what point does an echo become something new, something separate from the original? Consider the influence of great thinkers, artists, and leaders from the past. The ideas of Socrates, the music of Beethoven, the words of Shakespeare, these echoes have traveled across centuries. The people who first spoke them are long gone, yet their voices remain. If their influence still shapes the world today, are they truly gone, or do they exist in the echoes of their work? This paradox extends beyond words and ideas. It touches on our very existence. Every action we take leaves an imprint, whether we realize it or not. A single choice can create a chain reaction, a ripple through time. If we are remembered, even in the smallest way, are we ever truly lost? Picture a grandfather teaching his grandchild how to tie their shoes. The lesson is simple, seemingly insignificant. But years later, the child grows up and passes that same knowledge to their own child, who will one day pass it on again. The grandfather may no longer be alive, yet his presence lingers in the small, everyday echoes of his influence. This is the echo paradox at its most personal, the realization that every interaction, no matter how fleeting, has the potential to carry forward indefinitely. Our lives are not isolated moments, but continuations of everything that came before us. But what about the darker side of the paradox? If our words and actions can echo in positive ways, they can also ripple in ways we never intended. A careless insult, a cruel remark, a mistake, these too can reverberate, affecting others long after we have moved on. There's an old story about a man who spoke cruelly in anger. Later, he regretted his words and asked a wise elder how to take them back. The elder told him to go outside and scatter a bag of feathers into the wind. After he had done so, the elder said, "Now go and collect every feather." The man protested, saying it was impossible, wind had carried them too far. The elder nodded. So it is with your words. Once something is spoken, it cannot be undone. Even if forgotten by the speaker, its echo may continue, altering the course of someone's life in ways they never expected. This realization can be overwhelming. If every word and action can have unforeseen consequences, how can we ever be sure we are sending out the right echoes? How can we control something that is no longer in our hands? Perhaps we cannot. Perhaps that is part of the paradox, the understanding that once we set something in motion, it will take on a life of its own. The only thing within our control is what we choose to send out in the first place. Yet, the paradox also offers comfort. If our presence can echo beyond us, then perhaps we are never entirely gone. Perhaps immortality is not found in living forever, but in the traces we leave behind, in the laughter of friends who remember our jokes, in the kindness we once showed, in the lessons we taught. Think of the people you have lost, the ones who are no longer here. If you close your eyes, you can still hear their voices in your mind. You still recall their advice, their laughter, the way they made you feel. They are not here, yet in some way they are. Their echoes remain. If memories keep a person alive in our hearts, does that mean they are truly gone, or do they continue in the ways they shaped us, in the echoes that persist in our lives? The echo paradox reminds us that we are not isolated individuals moving through time alone. We are part of an interconnected web of influence, shaped by those before us and shaping those who come after us. One day, we will all become echoes. The conversations we had, the kindness we showed, the wisdom we passed on it, will all ripple outward in ways we may never witness. And in those echoes, perhaps, we will live on. The knowing paradox. Somewhere in a dimly lit library, the air thick with the scent of old books, a philosopher sits hunched over a thick tome, tracing the faded ink of an ancient text. His mind races as he uncovers new knowledge ideas that shift his understanding of the world, pushing the boundaries of what he thought he knew. Yet with every revelation, an unsettling thought creeps in. The more he learns, the more he realizes how much he doesn't know. This is the knowing paradox. The more we learn, the more we recognize the vastness of what we have yet to understand. Knowledge, rather than clarifying everything, seems to only expose new questions, new mysteries, and new layers of complexity. At first, the paradox seems contradictory. Isn't knowledge supposed to bring clarity? Shouldn't learning lead to certainty rather than doubt? But instead, the pursuit of knowledge often feels like climbing a mountain. Each step upward reveals new peaks in the distance, stretching far beyond the horizon. The more you see, the more you realize there is to see. This idea is not new. It is echoed through time, from Socrates' famous statement, "I know that I know nothing," to the scientific discoveries of today that only open more doors rather than closing them. It is the paradox at the heart of human curiosity. Our quest for knowledge never truly ends, because each answer only raises more questions. Imagine a young child who first learns about space. She is told that the stars in the sky are enormous balls of burning gas, millions of miles away. It is a thrilling discovery, a window into something grand and infinite. But soon she begins to ask, how far do the stars go? What is beyond them? And beyond that? The deeper she dives into astronomy, the more she learns about black holes, dark matter, and the expanding universe. Each new fact is an illumination, but it does not bring finality. It only invites deeper curiosity. Now, she is not just wondering about stars, but about the nature of time, the fabric of reality, the mysteries that even the greatest scientists do not fully understand. This is the heart of the knowing paradox. Knowledge does not shrink the unknown, it expands it. Every new discovery reveals the vastness of what we still have yet to comprehend. This paradox does not only apply to science, it exists in every field, in every journey of learning. A beginner in music learns the notes and feels a sense of mastery until they discover the intricacies of composition and realize how much more there is to grasp. A historian reading about one empire soon learns of the countless civilizations that preceded and followed it, each with its own layers of complexity. A person who begins to study human psychology finds themselves not with answers, but with new questions about the depths of the human mind. And so, the paradox follows. The wiser we become, the more we see the depth of our ignorance. This paradox can feel overwhelming. If knowledge only expands our awareness of what we do not know, is there ever a point where we can claim true understanding? Can we ever feel certain of anything? or are we doomed to an endless spiral of questions? Perhaps the answer lies not in the search for finality, but in embracing the journey itself. Consider the great thinkers of history, those who revolutionized our understanding of the world. None of them reached the end of knowledge. Instead, they devoted their lives to exploring the unknown, knowing full well that they would never have all the answers. Albert Einstein, despite reshaping physics, often spoke of the mysteries that remained. Leonardo da Vinci, a master of many disciplines, was famous for his insatiable curiosity, always feeling there was more to learn. Perhaps wisdom is not about knowing everything, but about understanding that knowledge itself is limitless. This paradox also has a deeply personal dimension. Think of how our beliefs and perceptions change over time. What we were once certain of, whether in philosophy, politics, love, or even our own identities, often evolves as we learn more. The absolute confidence of youth often softens with experience, replaced by a more nuanced understanding of life's complexities. A person who once held rigid views might, after years of experience, come to see the shades of gray in every situation. The more they learn about human nature, the more they realize that people are rarely simple, that history is rarely black and white, and that truth is often layered and subjective. The knowing paradox teaches humility. It reminds us that certainty is often an illusion, that the world is far too intricate for any one person to claim complete understanding. It warns us against the arrogance of thinking we have all the answers, urging us instead to remain open, questioning, and ever curious. And yet, this paradox does not diminish the value of knowledge, it only deepens it. Just because we may never know everything does not mean the pursuit of understanding is futile. On the contrary, it is what makes life endlessly fascinating. The thrill of discovery, the joy of uncovering something new, the excitement of unraveling a mystery, these are what make the human experience rich and meaningful. Imagine a vast, dark ocean stretching infinitely in all directions. Each piece of knowledge is like lighting a small lantern in the darkness. The more lanterns you light, the more you realize how much of the ocean remains unseen. But without those lanterns, without that pursuit of understanding, we would be left in complete darkness, unaware of even the questions we could be asking. The knowing paradox is not a curse, but an invitation. It invites us to approach the world with curiosity rather than certainty, with wonder rather than finality. It reminds us that wisdom is not in having all the answers, but in knowing which questions to ask. And perhaps, in the end, the greatest knowledge we can attain is the knowledge of our own limitations. The almost forever paradox. In a quiet park, an elderly man sits on a wooden bench, watching the slow rhythm of the world around him. Leaves rustle in the breeze, a mother walks by with her child, and in the distance, a couple strolls hand in hand. The man, lost in thought, contemplates the years that have passed, the friendships, the love, the moments of joy and sorrow. He remembers how, when he was younger, everything felt infinite. The summer afternoons stretched endlessly, and time felt abundant, as if it could last forever. Yet here he is now, realizing that forever was never reality, was just an illusion that eventually unraveled. This is the almost forever paradox, the strange contradiction that something can seem eternal right until the moment it ends. Friendships that felt unbreakable dissolve, relationships that seem destined to last fade away, and even civilizations that once dominated history become footnotes in textbooks. If something lasts forever until it doesn't, was it ever truly eternal? At its core, this paradox forces us to confront the illusion of permanence. We often believe things will last simply because they have existed for a long time. We assume that friendships that have endured years will always remain, that the love we feel in the present will never fade, that the routines we build will always be part of our lives. Yet, history and experience remind us that nothing is immune to change. Think about a grand empire, mighty, unstoppable, expanding across vast lands. The Romans once believed that their empire would last forever, and, for centuries, it seemed true. Their roads, their cities, their culture endured, and their rule was absolute. But then, slowly, cracks began to appear. What once seemed eternal eventually fell, its ruins scattered across time. If something feels infinite in the moment, but is destined to end, how should we think about it? Consider the nature of love. When two people fall in love, they often promise forever. They whisper words of eternity, believing that what they share will outlast everything. And for years it may seem true. They build a life together, share countless memories, and see each other through every season of change. But sometimes, despite everything, love fades. Two people who once felt inseparable grow distant, and what once felt like an unshakable bond quietly dissolves. In hindsight, did forever ever truly exist, or was it just a hopeful illusion? The paradox also applies to time itself. When we are young, time feels limitless. A single summer vacation stretches on forever, and waiting a year for something feels unbearable. But as we grow older, time speeds up, or at least it seems to. Weeks blur into months, months blur into years, and before we know it, decades have passed. The strange thing is, when we were living through those moments, they felt like they would never end. But once they are gone, they seem like fleeting blinks. If time only feels infinite while we are in it, was it ever truly vast? There is also the paradox of identity. Who we are feels constant. We wake up every day as ourselves, with the same memories, the same name, the same sense of self. But over time, we change. The person you were 5 years ago might feel almost like a stranger now. Your thoughts, your priorities, even your beliefs may have shifted. If your identity seems permanent in the moment but changes over the years, how stable is it really? Are we truly the same person throughout our lives, or are we just an evolving collection of memories and experiences? This paradox challenges our perception of security and stability. People stay in jobs they don't love, in relationships that no longer fulfill them, in cities that no longer feel like home, all because of the assumption that things are supposed to last. There is comfort in the illusion of forever. It allows us to feel safe, to avoid the anxiety of change. But when the illusion inevitably shatters, it can feel like a shock, even though deep down, we knew nothing lasts forever. So what do we do with this paradox? Do we despair, knowing that everything is temporary? Or do we embrace it, understanding that impermanence makes life all the more precious? Perhaps the answer lies in a different perspective. Instead of seeing forever as an absolute, we can see it as something that exists only within the moment. A sunset may last only a few minutes, but in those minutes it is infinite. A conversation with a loved one may be brief, but in the moment it feels like it contains a lifetime. A song may only last a few minutes, but in those minutes it holds the weight of emotion that transcends time. The almost forever paradox teaches us that eternity isn't about duration, it's about depth. Something doesn't have to last forever to have meant forever in the moment it existed. A short-lived romance can change a person's life just as deeply as a lifelong marriage. A single conversation can shape a person's mind as profoundly as years of education. A fleeting moment of connection, a glance, a shared laugh, an unexpected kindness can echo far beyond its brief existence. Think of a candle. It burns brightly, warming the space around it. If you watch it closely, you may feel like it will last for hours. But eventually, the wax runs out, the flame flickers, and it disappears. Was its light meaningless just because it ended, or was it beautiful precisely because it was always destined to fade? The almost forever paradox doesn't diminish the importance of what we experience, it deepens it. Knowing that nothing is permanent encourages us to be present, to appreciate what we have while we have it. Instead of waiting for forever, we learn to savor now. Perhaps in the end, It is not about how long something lasts, but about how fully it was lived. The moment you hold someone's hand and feel completely connected, that is forever, even if it only lasts a minute. The time spent laughing with friends, lost in the joy of the present, that is forever, even if life eventually pulls you apart. The love you give, the kindness you show, the memories you make, these moments, however brief, are eternity in themselves. As the elderly man sits on the bench, lost in thought, he smiles. He understands now. Life is not about trying to make things last forever. It is about embracing them while they last. He watches as a child chases a butterfly, as the wind rustles through the leaves, as the sun dips lower on the horizon. These things are fleeting, yes, but in the moment, they are infinite. And maybe that is enough. The Time Traveler's Paradox. The night is quiet, save for the hum of a street lamp flickering outside. You sit by your window, staring at the city below, lost in thought. What if you could go back? Not just in memory, but truly go back, step into the past, and change something. Maybe undo a mistake, take a different path, or even whisper advice to your younger self. The idea of time travel has fascinated humanity for centuries, but beneath its allure lies a paradox that bends the very fabric of logic and existence. The Time Traveler's Paradox asks a haunting question. If you could go back in time and change one moment, would you risk losing everything? Imagine this. You wake up one morning to find a letter on your desk. The handwriting is eerily familiar, but slightly different, older, more refined. The letter is from yourself, 10 years in the future. It warns you about a decision you are about to make, urging you to take a different path. Confused and skeptical, you hesitate. But something about the words compels you to listen. You change your course. Years later, you find yourself in a different place, perhaps a better one, perhaps worse, but undoubtedly different from the life you would have led. And then it dawns on you. If you took a different path because of the letter, then the future version of you, the one who wrote the letter, never existed in the first place. So who sent the letter? This is the heart of the paradox. If you go back in time and alter a crucial event, you risk erasing the version of yourself that made the trip in the first place. But if that version of you never existed, then you were never able to go back and make the change, meaning the event happened as it originally did. The moment you interfere with time, it loops into contradiction. One of the most famous examples of this paradox is the grandfather paradox. Suppose a traveler goes back in time and accidentally prevents their grandfather from meeting their grandmother. If their grandfather never meets their grandmother, then their parent is never born, and neither are they. But if they were never born, they could never have traveled back in time in the first place. And yet, if they never traveled back, their grandfather's life would have continued as normal, leading to their own eventual birth. The logic spirals infinitely, caught in an impossible contradiction. The paradox forces us to confront the unsettling possibility that time may not be as simple as past, present, and future. Instead, it suggests that time is a fragile web, where every action, no matter how small, sends ripples through reality. There are a few possible ways to resolve the paradox, but none are entirely satisfying. One idea is the fixed timeline theory, which suggests that even if time travel is possible, history is unchangeable. No matter what the traveler does, events will always unfold in a way that preserves the original timeline. If you go back to prevent a tragedy, you may inadvertently cause it in a different way. If you attempt to warn your past self, perhaps they misunderstand or ignore the message. The timeline resists change, ensuring that events always lead back to the same outcome. But this theory creates another problem. If the past cannot be changed, then time travel becomes meaningless. Why go back if you cannot alter anything? This leads to the self-fulfilling prophecy dilemma, where a time traveler's actions are not only inevitable but necessary. Imagine a scientist who reads about a future breakthrough in time travel and then dedicates their life to making it happen. If they only succeeded because they read about their future success, where did the original idea come from? Another possible resolution is the parallel timeline theory, also known as the multiverse interpretation. According to this idea, changing the past does not alter your original timeline, but instead creates a new branching reality. If you go back and prevent your grandfather from meeting your grandmother, your original timeline still exists, but a new one branches off where you were never born. In this way, time travel does not undo history, but rather creates an alternate version of it. But this too raises questions. If every change creates a new timeline, then infinite alternate realities are being formed every second. Each choice, no matter how small, results in a parallel world where things played out differently. Somewhere, there is a version of you who made different decisions, who lived a different life, and who perhaps wonders about you just as you wonder about them. Then, there is the possibility that time itself is an illusion. What if the past, present, and future all exist simultaneously, and our perception of moving forward through time is just a limitation of human consciousness? If every moment exists at once, then changing the past may not be possible because it is not truly past, it simply exists in a different part of the timeline, inaccessible from our perspective. The implications of the time traveler's paradox extend far beyond theoretical physics. It raises profound philosophical and emotional questions. If we could change our past, should we? Would undoing our regrets erase the lessons they taught us? If a painful experience shaped the person we became, would removing it also remove a part of us? Think of a person who has endured great hardship but emerged stronger. Would they go back and erase their suffering if it meant losing the resilience they gained from it? Would you? The paradox also confronts us with the fragile nature of destiny. If a single choice can create entirely different futures, then fate is not fixed, it is constantly rewriting itself with every decision we make. In a way, we are all time travelers, shaping the course of our lives one choice at a time. Late at night, as you sit by your window, you ponder these ideas. If time travel were real, would it be a blessing or a curse? Would it liberate us or trap us in endless loops of uncertainty? And then another thought occurs to you: perhaps we do not need time travel at all. Perhaps the power to change our lives is already within us. The past is unchangeable, but the future is unwritten. Every choice you make now determines what comes next. In that sense, you are a traveler through time, shaping your own destiny, not with a machine, but with the simple act of deciding who you will become. You close your eyes and let that thought settle in. The paradox remains unsolved, but maybe it does not need solving. Maybe, in the end, its true lesson is this: the best way to change the past is to make the present count. The enough paradox. The soft hum of a distant wind brushes against your window as you sit in the quiet of the night. The world around you sleeps, yet your mind is wide awake, wandering through the vast corridors of your thoughts. A question lingers, whispering to you in the stillness. When will it ever be enough? We chase things all our lives: money, success, recognition, love, happiness, but when we finally attain them, the satisfaction feels fleeting. No matter how much we acquire, there is always something more, something just out of reach. This is the enough paradox, the unsettling reality that the more we have, the more we seem to want, and that the feeling of enough often remains an illusion. Imagine standing at the bottom of a mountain, gazing up at its peak. You tell yourself that once you reach the top, you will feel fulfilled. You will rest, content in your achievement. And so, you climb. You push yourself through the exhaustion, the struggle, the doubts. But when you finally reach the summit, your eyes widen. Beyond the peak, there is another mountain, taller than the one you just conquered. And beyond that, another and another. The horizon stretches infinitely. The peak you thought was the end was merely a step to something higher. This is the paradox in its purest form. Every goal achieved is replaced by a new one. Every desire fulfilled creates space for another. The feeling of enough is always postponed to a future that never arrives. The paradox is woven into the fabric of human ambition. We believe that once we reach a particular milestone, we will finally feel satisfied once we make a certain amount of money, once we buy the dream home, once we achieve the perfect physique, once we find the right relationship. But when we get there, the satisfaction is temporary. A new desire takes its place, and the cycle begins again. Psychologists call this the hedonic treadmill, idea that no matter what happens in our lives, good or bad, we eventually return to a baseline level of happiness. You win the lottery, and at first, your joy is immeasurable. But give it a year, and your happiness levels return to normal. You get the promotion you dreamed of, but soon enough, it feels like just another job. The treadmill never stops. The moment you start running, you must keep going, because stopping means confronting the unsettling truth. No external achievement will ever create permanent fulfillment. But why? Why do we always want more? At its core, this paradox stems from the way our minds are wired. Desire is not just about acquiring something, it is about the pursuit itself. The brain releases dopamine not when we achieve something, but when we anticipate it. This is why the excitement of chasing a dream often feels more fulfilling than actually achieving it. It is why people who win great success or wealth often find themselves feeling empty once they have it, because the thrill was in the chase, not the capture. And so, the paradox deepens. The more you believe that happiness lies in the future, the further away it moves. Consider a man who spends his entire life working tirelessly, believing that once he retires with enough savings, he will finally be at peace. Decades pass, and the day finally arrives, has enough money to never work again. But instead of feeling the peace he envisioned, he feels uneasy. The work, the chase, the drive it was all he ever knew. Now, without something to pursue, he feels lost. The thing he thought would bring him fulfillment has left him feeling emptier than before. The enough paradox does not just apply to wealth or success. It extends into love, relationships, even self-worth. A person may believe that once they find the perfect partner, they will feel whole. But when they do, they realize that no relationship, no matter how beautiful, can permanently fill the gaps inside them. The paradox raises a haunting question. If no external achievement can ever make us feel like we have enough, then what will? Some argue that the key is gratitude, that if we can learn to appreciate what we have, instead of always wanting more, we can break free from the cycle. And there is truth to this. Studies have shown that people who practice gratitude regularly report higher levels of happiness and contentment, but even gratitude has its limits. It is difficult to force yourself to feel grateful when your mind is wired to always look for the next step. Others suggest that the answer lies in detachment learning to pursue goals without tying your sense of self-worth to their outcome. The idea is not to stop striving, but to stop believing that the destination will bring lasting happiness, to enjoy the journey rather than waiting for the arrival. But perhaps the most unsettling realization is this. The feeling of enough is not something to be achieved, but something to be chosen. It is not a number in your bank account, a title next to your name, or a certain weight on a scale. It is an internal decision to say, "This is enough for me, not because I can't have more, but because I don't need more to be complete." And yet, even with this realization, the paradox lingers. Because how do you convince yourself to stop chasing when the world constantly tells you to keep running? How do you say, "enough," when every instinct in your mind whispers, "just a little more"? Late at night, as you sit in the quiet, you begin to wonder if the paradox can ever truly be solved. Perhaps it is not meant to be solved, only understood. Maybe the real lesson is this. It is okay to strive, to want more, to dream of greater things. But do not let the chase steal the life you already have. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that life is happening now, not when you get the promotion, not when you buy the house, not when you lose the weight, or find the right person. Now, as you close your eyes, a strange sense of peace washes over you. The enough paradox is not a problem to fix, but a truth to live with. You will always want more, and that is okay. But right here, right now, in this moment, you are enough. The meaning paradox. The room is dimly lit, and outside the night stretches endlessly. A soft breeze moves through the open window, stirring the curtains in slow, rhythmic waves. You sit quietly, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of a question that has haunted thinkers, poets, and dreamers for centuries. What is the meaning of life? It is a question that seems so profound, so vital, yet the more you think about it, the more elusive the answer becomes. Philosophers have debated it, religions have sought to define it, and scientists have tried to frame it within the laws of the universe. And yet, no single answer satisfies everyone. Some say the meaning of life is love. Others say it is growth. Some claim it is simply survival. But no matter which answer you settle on, doubt lingers. What if life has no objective meaning at all? This is the heart of the meaning paradox, the idea that while humans are deeply wired to seek meaning, the universe itself offers none. If meaning is something we must create, does it hold any real significance? And if life has no built-in purpose, does that make it meaningless? Or does it make it infinitely meaningful? Imagine a vast, empty beach at sunrise. The sky is painted in soft pinks and golds, the waves rolling in gentle, endless rhythms. You walk along the shore and pick up a small seashell. It is beautiful, but you ask yourself, does this shell have meaning? Alone, without context, it is just a shell. But if you decide to give it meaning, if you assign it as a symbol of a special moment, a reminder of a thought, a token of love, then it becomes something more. The shell itself has not changed, yet in your mind, it has become significant. The paradox is this: meaning is not something we find, but something we impose. It does not exist outside of us, but within us. This realization can be both liberating and terrifying. On one hand, it means we have the power to shape our own lives, to define what matters and what does not. But on the other hand, it means that no meaning is absolute. What is sacred to one person may be meaningless to another. What you cherish today may feel insignificant tomorrow. If meaning is something we create rather than discover, then does that make it fragile? For centuries, humans have searched for meaning in the stars, in gods, in art, in relationships, in achievements. Yet history is filled with figures who, despite attaining everything they once believed would give life purpose, found themselves feeling empty. Some of the most celebrated mind authors, inventors, leaders have confessed, in the quiet of their final years, that they still do not know what it was all for. If success, love, and wisdom do not provide lasting answers, then what does? Some turn to science for meaning, believing that understanding the universe gives life purpose. But science, in its vast and impersonal way, offers no inherent meaning in facts, patterns, and observations. The stars do not care about our struggles. The galaxies do not weep when we suffer. To the universe, we are but fleeting moments of consciousness, existing for a blink in time before vanishing forever. This is where the paradox tightens. If life is meaningless, does that free us, or does it make everything we do insignificant? The existentialists embraced this paradox, arguing that life's lack of inherent meaning is precisely what makes it meaningful. If nothing matters in some grand cosmic sense, then we are free to decide what matters for ourselves. The painter who pours his soul into his work, the mother who raises her child with love, the traveler who collects memories instead of possessions, each of them finds meaning in their own way, even if the universe itself is indifferent. But this idea also raises a painful question. If meaning is personal, then what happens when the things we once lived for lose their significance? A man builds his life around his career, only to realize decades later that his work no longer fulfills him. A woman spends years in a relationship, believing it to be the center of her world, only to find that love has faded. An artist creates masterpiece after masterpiece, yet feels emptier with each one. If meaning is something we assign, then what happens when the meaning we once clung to disappears? Perhaps this is why humans seek something larger than themselves: religion, philosophy, legacy, service. We want to believe that our lives matter beyond just our personal experience, that they contribute to something eternal. A man who dedicates his life to helping others may not know whether there is an ultimate meaning to existence, but he finds meaning in his actions nonetheless. But what if there is no grand purpose? What if everything we do, every love we hold dear, every dream we chase, is ultimately swallowed by time? Does that make life tragic, or does it make it breathtakingly beautiful? Imagine two actors on a stage performing a play that will never be recorded, never be repeated. The audience is small, the performance fleeting, and yet, in that moment, it is everything. The actors pour themselves into their roles, the emotions are real, the story is alive. The fact that it will end does not make it meaningless, it makes it precious. Perhaps that is the real answer to the meaning paradox. Meaning is not found in permanence, but in presence. The value of something is not measured by how long it lasts, but by how deeply it is felt. The sun will one day burn out. The earth will fade into dust. Every book ever written, every song ever sung, every great civilization will be forgotten in the void of time. But right now, at this very moment, the sun still rises. The earth still breathes. The books are still read. The songs are still sung. And we are still here, living, feeling, loving. Maybe meaning is not about seeking something eternal, but about embracing what is fleeting. You sit back, listening to the wind outside, letting this realization settle in. The meaning paradox does not offer a clear resolution. It does not hand you an answer wrapped in certainty. But maybe that is the point. Maybe life does not need an absolute meaning to be meaningful. Maybe the search itself is what makes life worth living. Maybe the simple act of wondering, of questioning, of seeking beauty in the unknown is enough. And as you close your eyes, the question remains, lingering softly in your mind. But this time, it does not trouble you. This time, it feels like a quiet companion, walking beside you rather than haunting you. The paradox remains, but so do you. The unlived life paradox. The night outside is deep and silent. The world is resting, but your mind is still awake, wandering through roads you never took, decisions you never made, and the person you might have become. It's a strange feeling, this quiet ache for something that never was. Perhaps it's a career you turned away from, a city you never moved to, a love you let slip away. In some other version of reality, you imagine yourself living a completely different life. And so you find yourself trapped in the unlived life paradox, the idea that no matter which path we take, we are haunted by the versions of ourselves that never came to be. You sit back, staring at the ceiling, remembering the moments that led you here. There were crossroads. Some choices were made carefully, others impulsively, and some choices weren't even yours to make. But for every road you walked, there was another left behind, fading into the distance. It's unsettling to think about the life that could have been, the parallel version of yourself living a life that seems just out of reach. Perhaps you chose security over adventure. Maybe you followed a safe path, one that promised stability. But now, you can't help but wonder, what if you had taken a risk? What if you had chased that dream instead of shelving it for later? And then the thoughts spiraled deeper. Was that truly your dream? Or was it just another illusion? A fantasy of a life that looks perfect from a distance but would have had its own disappointments up close. This is the paradox. The life you didn't live seems perfect only because you never had to experience its hardships. Imagine standing before two doors, each leading to a different life. You chose one and walked through, but the other door never disappears. It lingers in the back of your mind, a constant whisper of, "What if?" And here's the paradox. Even if you had chosen the other door, you would still be wondering about the one you left behind. No matter which life you live, there will always be another life unlived. Somewhere, in another version of reality, you imagine yourself living a completely different life, a bolder, freer, more successful version of yourself. But here's the flaw in this thinking. You're comparing your reality to a fantasy. The life you're imagining is free of the struggles, heartbreaks, and sacrifices that come with every real life. You don't see the arguments, the failures, the moments of self-doubt that would have come with that path. You only see the highlight reel of what could have been, not the full reality. And yet, the feeling persists. It lingers in small ways when you scroll through social media and see someone who pursued the dream you once had. When an old friend tells you about their exciting new adventure, and you wonder if you missed your chance at something greater. But here's a thought. What if the life you are living now is someone else's unlived life? Think about it. There is another version of you in some alternate timeline who wonders what it would have been like if they had made the choices you made. Maybe they see your life and feel the same longing for something that never was. Maybe they think you were the brave one, the one who took a chance on a path they never dared to walk. The unlived life paradox also plays a trick on us in the present. Sometimes we hold back from fully embracing the life we have because we are too busy mourning the one we didn't choose. We carry this invisible weight, treating the past as though it is still open for negotiation, as if we could go back and redo things. But we can't. We are here, in this version of life, and the more we dwell on what could have been, the less we truly live. There is another layer to this paradox, the fear that we are still not making the right choices, that our future selves will look back with the same regret we feel now. What if, years from now, you realize that you should have taken more chances? What if your future self wishes that you had been bolder, kinder, more present? It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that meaning is found in the grand, dramatic moments, the major career shift, the whirlwind romance, the dream that finally comes true. But the paradox teaches us something deeper. The life you long for is not just in the big choices, but in the small moments you choose to embrace. Think about the moments you have lived full times, when you were completely present, when you felt alive and aware. Maybe it was laughing with a close friend until your stomach hurt. Maybe it was watching a sunrise in complete silence. Maybe it was helping a stranger, holding a loved one's hand, or simply existing in a moment of deep gratitude. These are not the things we typically define as life-changing, yet they are what life is made of. The paradox isn't meant to be solved, it's meant to be understood. You will always wonder about the roads not taken. You will always see glimpses of another version of yourself in the distance. But instead of letting those thoughts steal the joy from the life you have, you can use them as a reminder. You are here. This is the life you are living, and it is real. Imagine, for a moment, that you could switch places with your unlived life, self, the one who made the opposite choices. They would step into your shoes, into your reality, and suddenly, your life would become theirs. Would they mourn their old path the way you do now? Would they see your life as a missed opportunity? Or would they, perhaps, feel grateful for the journey ahead of them? The unlived life paradox reminds us that regret is not about the past, it's about our relationship with the present. The only way to truly silence the longing for what never was is to fully embrace what is. So tonight, as the world outside rests and the wind whispers through the trees, take a breath. Feel the life in your lungs, the quiet hum of existence within you. This is your life. It is unfolding right now, in real time, not in some distant alternate reality, not in a version of you that never was, but here, in this moment. And maybe, just maybe, that is enough. The fading footsteps paradox. It's late at night, and outside, the world is quiet. You're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of time pressing down on you. Memories drift through your mind, some sharp and vivid, others slipping away like sand between your fingers. You try to hold on to them, but they fade, becoming hazy, uncertain. You start to wonder, if no one remembers something, did it ever really happen? This is the fading footsteps paradox, the unsettling realization that as time moves forward, the past becomes less real, less certain, as if events only exist as long as someone remembers them. If history can be rewritten, reshaped, or forgotten, then how solid is our understanding of what was? Imagine walking on a deserted beach. With each step, your footprints press into the sand, marking your path. But as the tide comes in, the waves begin to wash them away. Step by step, your presence is erased until nothing remains. If someone were to arrive later, they would never know you had walked that path at all. And yet, you were there. You felt the sand beneath your feet, heard the whisper of the ocean. You know you existed in that moment. But what happens when no one is left to remember? History is built on memory, but memory is fragile. Entire civilizations have risen and fallen, their stories lost to time. We read about ancient kings and forgotten wars, but for every name recorded in a book, there are countless lives that vanished without a trace. The people who lived those lives loved, dreamed, feared, and struggled, just like we do now. But without records, without memories passed down, they are gone. Their footprints have faded. And then the thought creeps in one day, will the same happen to you? It's a strange and unsettling feeling to realize that one day, everything you've done, everything you've thought and felt, may disappear. Maybe your name will be remembered by family. Maybe it will be etched into a gravestone. But 100 years from now? 200? Who will know you were here? This is where the paradox takes hold. If the past is only real as long as it is remembered, does that mean reality itself is subjective? Imagine a childhood memoria birthday party, a special moment with a loved one. You remember it clearly, the warmth, the laughter, the feeling of joy. But what if no one else remembers? What if, somehow, you misremembered? If no record of that event exists and no one else can confirm it, was it real? Or, take a larger example, historical events we accept as truth. How much of history is accurate, and how much has been shaped by the biases and interpretations of those who recorded it? We assume what we read in textbooks is fact, but history is always written by someone, and often someone with an agenda. If a historical event was erased from all records, does that mean it never happened? Or does it mean it is simply lost, waiting to be rediscovered? This paradox reveals something profound. The past is never as fixed as we think. It exists in our memories, in our records, in the stories we tell. But memories fade, records are destroyed, and stories change with each retelling. The past is constantly slipping through our fingers, no matter how tightly we try to hold on. But this paradox doesn't only apply to history, it applies to us, to the way we define ourselves. We like to think that we are shaped by our past, that our experiences make us who we are. But if memories fade, if we forget parts of our own story, does that change who we are? If you forget a painful moment from your childhood, does it still shape you? If you forget a friend you once loved, does that friendship still matter? The paradox forces us to confront a terrifying idea. If something is forgotten completely, does it become as if it never happened? It's easy to assume that something's importance is measured by how long it is remembered. But is that true? If a kind gesture changes someone's life, does it matter if they forget who did it? If a moment of love brought someone happiness, does it lose its meaning just because time erases the memory? Perhaps the answer is that some things exist beyond memory. Maybe what matters is not whether something is remembered forever, but that it was real in the moment it happened. The love you gave, the kindness you showed, the happiness you felt, all of it was real, whether or not anyone remembers it in 100 years. And yet, there is another layer to this paradox. What if some things refuse to fade? Throughout history, people have tried to defy time, to carve their names into stone, to leave something behind that will last. Some build monuments, some write books, some create art, all in an effort to ensure that even when they are gone, something of them remains. And sometimes even small, forgotten things resurface. An old letter found in a dusty attic, a name etched into a tree, a faded photograph reminders that nothing is ever truly gone, just waiting to be found again. So where does that leave us? How do we live knowing that time will erase most of what we do? Perhaps the answer is to stop worrying about being remembered and start focusing on being present. Instead of chasing immortality through legacy, we can embrace the fleeting nature of life and make the most of the moments we do have. Maybe meaning isn't found in being remembered, but in the impact we have, whether or not it is recorded. As you lie in bed, the weight of time pressing down on you, you realize something. The past is only gone if you let it be. Every moment you have lived is still part of you, shaping you, even if the details fade. And long after you are gone, the things you have done will ripple outward in ways you may never see. Outside, the night continues. The world moves on, the footsteps of billions fading into time. But even as they fade, they mattered. And so do you. The Lighthouse Paradox. Imagine standing at the edge of a rocky coastline on a stormy night. The sky is dark. The waves crash violently against the jagged cliffs, and the salty wind howls through the air. Out in the distance, amidst the chaos, a single beam of light sweeps across the Oceana Lighthouse, standing tall against the darkness, guiding lost sailors home. Its purpose is clear: to illuminate the dangers of the sea, to warn others of treacherous rocks, to ensure that ships reach the shore safely. But here's the paradox: the lighthouse itself is always in darkness. This is the Lighthouse Paradox, the idea that something whose entire purpose is to provide guidance, clarity, and safety to others remains unable to experience the very light it shines. It warns of dangers it will never sail through, protects ships from wreckage while standing firmly on land, and yet, despite its vital role, it never truly sees what it illuminates. It's a strange contradiction, but one that reflects a deeper truth about life. The ones who guide others are often the ones who are most lost themselves. Think about the people in your life who always seem to have the answers: the friend who gives the best advice, the teacher who inspires, the parent who always knows how to comfort. They are like lighthouses, offering direction to others in moments of uncertainty. But have you ever stopped to wonder who guides them? The therapist who listens to the pain of countless souls may go home and struggle in silence. The mentor who lifts others up might battle their own doubts in the dark. The friend who always knows what to say may, when alone, feel just as lost as everyone else. The paradox is that the light they give to others does not always reach them. Picture a lighthouse again, its beam stretching across the sea. It is powerful, steady, unwavering. Ships depend on it. And yet, if a lighthouse had consciousness, wouldn't it feel alone? It stands firm while the world moves around it. It guides others but remains stationary itself. It shines outward, but never inward. This paradox extends beyond individual sit, exists in relationships, in careers, in society itself. How many times have you seen someone dedicate their life to helping others while neglecting their own well-being? The teacher who sacrifices their health for their students, the parent who works tirelessly to provide for their children but never takes a moment for themselves, the leader who fights for a cause but struggles in silence with their own burdens. This raises an uncomfortable question: is it possible to guide others without losing yourself? A lighthouse does not need to see its own light to be useful, but a person? A person needs warmth, needs reassurance, needs direction. A person cannot live solely to serve others without eventually feeling empty. There's a lesson in the Lighthouse Paradox. You can only shine for others for so long before you must turn inward and find light for yourself. The danger of being the lighthouse is burnout. Imagine a lighthouse that shines too brightly, too constantly. It never rests, never takes a moment to dim. Eventually, its light begins to flicker. The lens becomes cracked, the structure weakens, and one day, in the middle of a storm when it is needed most, it goes dark. The same happens to people who never take time for themselves. The friend who never asks for help eventually feels isolated. The leader who carries the weight of others without pause eventually collapses under the pressure. The parent who gives and gives without replenishing their own energy begins to lose themselves. So, what is the solution? Balance. A lighthouse does not shine continuously, it has a rhythm. A moment of darkness before the light sweeps back around. It doesn't try to illuminate everything at once, nor does it attempt to rescue the ships itself. It simply guides. People, too, must learn this rhythm. The ability to help others is a gift, but it should not come at the cost of your own well-being. You must allow yourself moments of stillness, moments to step away from being the guide and become the traveler. And here's where the paradox finds its resolution: a lighthouse that burns out helps no one. The strongest guides are not those who sacrifice themselves completely, but those who understand that they too must be cared for. A teacher who takes time for themselves teaches better. A leader who acknowledges their struggles leads with greater wisdom. A friend who learns to receive support becomes even better at giving it. The Lighthouse Paradox challenges us to think about the balance between selflessness and self-care. It reminds us that while guiding others is noble, it is not sustainable if it comes at the cost of our own light. Imagine that same lighthouse standing against the storm, but this time it is well maintained. Its foundation is strong. Its light is steady. And because it has taken care of itself, it continues to shine not just for others, but with the quiet assurance that it too is part of the world it illuminates. So as you drift into sleep, let this paradox settle into your mind. Perhaps you have been the lighthouse for others, offering guidance, standing strong, shining light in the darkness. If so, remember this: you too deserve to see the light. You too deserve rest. The ocean will always have ships, and storms will always come, but a lighthouse that cares for itself will stand the test of time. Tonight, let your own light be enough. Rest, breathe. Know that even in the moments when you are not shining for others, you are still valuable, still strong, and when the morning comes, your light will return steady, unwavering, and ready to guide once more. The forgotten sound paradox. Close your eyes for a moment and try to recall the sound of a loved one's voice from childhood. Not just the idea of their voice, but the actual sound, the tone, the warmth, the little inflections that made it unique. Maybe you can hear it clearly, or maybe it's faded, like a distant echo. Now, think about a song you once knew by heart, but haven't heard in years. You know you knew it, but if you had to hum it right now, could you? What about the laughter of a friend you lost touch with, the way their voice used to brighten when they were excited? If you can no longer recall it exactly, does that mean the sound is forever? This is the forgotten sound paradox, the idea that something can exist so vividly in a moment, shaping us, defining our experiences, and then one day simply fade away. If a sound is forgotten, did it ever truly exist for us in the first place? And if we can no longer hear it in our minds, does it mean it is lost forever? There's something deeply unsettling about this paradox. We tend to think of memories as things we own, as permanent fixtures in our minds. But sound, more than anything else, seems to slip through our fingers like water. Unlike photographs, which can be revisited, or words that can be read again, sound exists only in the moment it is heard. It vibrates through the air, touches us, and then disappears. We can record it, replay it, but the experience of truly hearing it live, that moment, can never be reclaimed. Think about the voices of those who are no longer here. A grandparent, a childhood friend, someone you love deeply but haven't spoken to in years. At one point, Their voice was as real as your own. You heard it every day. You could recognize it instantly in a crowd. But memory is fragile. Over time, those voices blur, soften, until one day you realize you can no longer remember exactly how they sounded. The paradox lies in the way we experience loss. We assume that what has been heard once can always be remembered. But in reality, sound is fleeting. A word spoken leaves no trace once the air stops vibrating. A laugh, no matter how joyous, fades into silence. If something so personal, so defining, can vanish from our memory, what does that say about the way we hold on to the past? A deeper layer of this paradox emerges when we consider how sound is connected to emotion. Have you ever heard an old song unexpectedly and felt a rush of emotion as if a door had opened in your mind? The melody carries memories, transporting you back to a time you had forgotten. And yet, before you heard that song again, it was as if the memory didn't exist. It makes you wonder how many other moments, sounds, experiences are locked away in our minds, waiting for a trigger to bring them back. And if they never resurface, does that mean they are gone forever? Imagine a town where the bells of an old church used to ring every morning, their sound a comforting presence to the people living there. But over time, the church falls silent. The bells stop ringing, and slowly, people begin to forget their tone, their rhythm. A new generation grows up never having heard them at all. If no one remembers the sound, did it ever really exist? Or does it only truly exist in the minds of those who still recall it? This paradox also extends to our personal identity. The sound of our own voice changes over time. Recordings of ourselves from years ago often sound strange to us, as if we are hearing a different person. If you can't remember how you used to sound as a child, does that version of you still exist in any real way? Or is it lost, like an unheard echo? The forgotten sound paradox also connects to history. There are languages that have gone extinct, songs that were once sung across generations but are now lost to time. Stories that were passed down orally for centuries are now silent because no one is left to speak them. If no one remembers, do they still hold meaning? There is something haunting yet beautiful about this paradox. It reminds us that life is transient, that moments pass, and that nothing lasts forever. But it also teaches us something powerful, that sound is not just about what we hear, but what we experience in the moment. Even if a sound fades from memory, the emotions, the feelings it evoked, the way it shaped us, all of that remains. So what does this mean for us? Do we fight to hold on to every sound, every voice, every fleeting moment? Or do we accept that some things will slip away, that forgetting is a part of life? Perhaps the answer lies in appreciation. If sound is fleeting, then every moment we hear something meaningful is a gift. The laughter of a friend, the comforting words of a parent, the melody of a song we love, these are all temporary, but that makes them even more precious. Instead of fearing the loss of these sounds, maybe we should embrace them while they are here. Tonight, as you lie in bed, listening to the quiet of the night, think about all the sounds that have shaped you, the voices that comforted you, the songs that defined your youth, the little sounds of everyday life that you take for granted, the rustling of leaves outside, the distant hum of a city, the steady rhythm of your own breath. These are the sounds of existence, the echoes of a life being lived. And perhaps that is the resolution to the paradox. Sound does not need to be remembered to have mattered. The bell that once rang, the laughter that once filled a room, the whisper that was once spoken in love, all of these shaped the world in ways that go beyond memory. They were real, and they mattered, even if they are forgotten. So as you drift into sleep, let the forgotten sound paradox remind you of something important. Life is not just about what we remember, but about what we experience. Listen deeply, be present, and know that even the sounds that fade have left their mark on you in ways that memory alone cannot contain. The fading shadow paradox. Picture yourself walking down a quiet street at sunset. The golden light stretches your shadow long across the pavement, mirroring your every movement. You pause, and so does your shadow. You raise your hand, and it follows. But as the sun dips lower, the shadow begins to shrink, soften, and eventually fade into the darkness of the approaching night. Now, think about this. Was that shadow ever truly there? It had no substance, no weight, no independent existence. Yet, for a time, it was an undeniable presence, always with you, always connected. And now, it's gone. Does that mean it never mattered? Did its fading erase the fact that it once stretched across the street with you? This is the fading shadow paradox, a metaphor for the way our past shapes us, and how we struggle to define whether our history defines who we are, or whether we are free to shape ourselves anew. The shadow of the past. We all carry shadows from our past memories, mistakes, triumphs, regrets. They follow us, sometimes unnoticed, sometimes overwhelming. We like to believe that we are in control of who we become. But how much of our present self is still shaped by things long gone? Consider a person who, as a child, was painfully shy, hesitant to speak up in class, afraid of being judged. Now, as an adult, they are confident, outspoken, maybe even a leader. Has that past version of them disappeared? Or is it still there, lingering like a faint shadow beneath their present self? If you could erase every memory of past fears, doubts, and failures, would you still be you? If you could cut away all the pain that shaped you, would the person that remains be the same? This paradox forces us to question whether our past selves continue to define us even as we grow beyond them. Do they fade like shadows at dusk, or do they remain etched in us, even when we try to step into the light? The weight of shadows. Think about old photographs of yourself. Looking at them can feel like peering into the life of a stranger. The person in the picture had different thoughts, different dreams, different fears. Yet, that person was undeniably you. It's strange, isn't it, that we can look at an old version of ourselves and feel both connected and disconnected at the same time. The past, you made choices that led you here, but does that past self still exist in any meaningful way? Memories fade, experiences blur, but their impact lingers in subtle ways. The confidence we have today may have been built on the insecurities of yesterday. The wisdom we hold now came from the mistakes we once made. The pain we endured shaped the way we love, trust, and protect ourselves. Yet, at the same time, we are always changing. If we are no longer haunted by an old fear, does that mean it no longer defines us? If we have forgiven an old wound, does that mean it never mattered? If the shadow of our past no longer follows us, is it truly gone? The illusion of permanence. Now, let's step into the paradox even deeper. If the past shapes us, then surely it must still be with us, right? But consider this. The cells in your body are constantly regenerating. Scientists say that, on a biological level, nearly every cell in your body has been replaced within a decade. So the body you have now is not the same body you had 10 years ago. If even your physical self is not the same, then what remains of who you were? Imagine a river. It is always flowing, always changing. The water you touch today is not the same water that was there yesterday, and yet we call it the same river. Just like that, we look in the mirror and call ourselves the same person, despite the fact that nearly everything about us has changed over time. So, does the past still define us, or do we redefine ourselves with every passing moment? If we let go of the past, do we lose ourselves, or do we finally become free? The shadow and the light. There is another side to this paradoxo. We perceive the past itself. A shadow only exists when there is light. Without light, there is no contrast, no form, no distinction between past and present. In other words, we only struggle with this paradox because we are aware of time passing. We mark moments as before and after, as who I was and who I am now. But imagine if we had no concept of time, if all moments simply existed together without a sense of past or future. Would the shadow of our past still matter? Or would it be just another part of the continuous flow of existence? This is where the paradox twists. We are shaped by the past, but we also shape our own interpretation of it. Two people can go through the same experience. One may carry it as a burden, while the other sees it as a lesson. The past itself does not hold power over us. It is our perception of it that gives it weight. Living with the paradox. So, how do we live with the fading shadow paradox? How do we make peace with the question of whether our past still defines us? Maybe the answer lies in understanding that we are neither completely free from our past nor entirely trapped by it. Like a shadow, our past selves may follow us, but they do not control our steps. The pain, the lessons, the joys, and the regrets, these things do not vanish, but they do evolve. A shadow may fade as the sun rises, but its existence was real. It played a part in the day, just as our past plays a part in who we become. Perhaps the healthiest way to navigate this paradox is to acknowledge that we are a collection of all the people we have ever been, but that we are not bound to any one version of ourselves. Think of the child you once were, the teenager who dreamed of different things, the version of you who made mistakes, who loved deeply, who suffered loss, who found new joys. All of those selves still exist within you, but they do not define you. You are the river, constantly flowing. You are the bridge, constantly being built. You are the light, shifting and changing, shaping the shadows that stretch behind you. A final thought. As you lie in bed tonight, staring at the ceiling in the quiet dark, think about the shadows that linger in your mind. Are they holding you back, or are they simply reminders of where you have been? Are you carrying them as burdens, or are they part of the map that led you here? The past does not vanish, but it does not own you either. It is a shadow reel, yet intangible, present, yet fading. And in understanding this paradox, you might just find the freedom to step into the light. The unfinished Symphony paradox. Imagine walking through a dimly lit museum late at night, the echoes of your footsteps lost in the vast hallways. You pause before a painting half completed, the brushstrokes still visible, the colors suddenly stopping where the artist's work had ceased. The canvas, once destined to be a masterpiece, now rests in an eternal state of incompletion. You find yourself staring at it longer than expected. Why? Because it feels unresolved. Your mind itches for closure, longing to see the missing details, the parts that were never painted. Yet, at the same time, something about its unfinished state makes it hauntingly beautiful. Now, imagine you're listening to a piece of music. The melody rises, the instruments swell, tension builds, leading you to expect the grand climax, and then silence. The piece cuts off before reaching its resolution. The missing notes linger in your mind, making the silence seem louder than any sound could. This is the unfinished symphony paradox, the idea that something incomplete can feel more powerful than something finished, that the things left unsaid, undone, or unexplored often leave a deeper impact than those that reach their intended conclusion. The weight of incompleteness. There's a strange beauty in unfinished things. Consider the works of famous artists, musicians, and writers whose lives ended before they could complete their creations. One of the most famous examples is Franz Schubert's Symphony No. 8, often called the Unfinished Symphony. Schubert composed 2 movements of what was supposed to be a grand, full-length symphony, but then, inexplicably, stopped. He never completed it, leaving behind a musical mystery that has puzzled scholars and musicians for centuries. Yet despite its incompleteness, the symphony remains one of the most beloved and widely performed pieces of classical music. Some even argue that its unfinished state gives it an emotional power it wouldn't have had if it were completed. Would a resolution have weakened its impact? This paradox applies beyond music. Throughout history, unfinished novels, half-completed paintings, and abandoned inventions have captured the imagination of generations. Leonardo da Vinci's sketches, unfinished yet brilliant, still inspire artists today. F. Scott Fitzgerald's incomplete novel, The Last Tycoon, remains a topic of literary discussion, as readers speculate on what might have been. Why do unfinished things hold such power? Perhaps because they invite us to participate in their completion, allowing our minds to fill in the gaps. Instead of being passive observers, we become part of the creative process. The unfinished stories we live. But this paradox isn't just about art, it's about life itself. How many things in our own lives remain unfinished? Think about the projects you started but never completed, the dreams you had but never pursued fully, the relationships that ended abruptly, leaving words unspoken and emotions unresolved. There's a deep sense of frustration and incompletion, a longing for closure that we rarely receive. When a book ends, we close it. When a song finishes, we hear the final note. But in life, things often don't wrap up so neatly. A friendship fades without explanation. A dream is put on hold, then abandoned. A person we love leaves too soon, and we are left with the silence between the missing notes, the space where the final brushstrokes should have been. Does this mean our stories are broken, or does their incompleteness give them meaning? The power of endings. Some of the greatest stories in history have open-ended conclusions. Instead of a clear resolution, they leave us with questions, emotions, and room for interpretation. Think of movies that end ambiguously, where we never find out what truly happened. These endings stay with us longer than predictable conclusions because they invite us to think, to wonder, to engage with the story beyond its final scene. Our own lives operate in the same way. We chase certainty, but rarely find it. We seek finality, but are often left with questions. And maybe, just maybe, that's what makes life compelling. If every story had a neat resolution, if every question had an answer, we might lose the mystery that keeps us searching, growing, and evolving. This is the essence of the unfinished symphony paradox. Sometimes, the lack of closure is what gives something its emotional depth. When completion is an illusion, there is another side to this paradoxon that suggests nothing is ever truly finished. Think about the greatest achievements of human civilization, the grandest buildings, the most powerful ideas, the most influential works of art. Were they ever truly finished? The Great Wall of China was built, rebuilt, and extended over centuries. The Mona Lisa was altered by Da Vinci even after its supposed completion. Even scientific theories, which seem solid in their time, are later revised, expanded, or completely replaced. Everything is in a constant state of change. What we call finished is often just a temporary stopping point. Even in our own lives, what we see as an ending is often the beginning of something else. The end of a relationship leads to new growth. The loss of a dream pushes us toward another path. The unfinished moments we mourn are often the seeds of something greater. So perhaps the real paradox isn't that things are left unfinished, it's that we ever believe anything is finished at all. Living with the unfinished. How do we make peace with the unfinished symphony paradox? How do we accept that life is filled with incomplete stories, unresolved emotions, and paths we will never walk? Maybe the answer is to embrace the beauty of what's left undone, to recognize that the missing brushstrokes allow us to imagine infinite endings, that the silence after an unfinished song gives us space to hear our own music, that the stories we leave behind finished, as they maybe still hold meaning in their imperfection. Imagine if Schubert had finished his symphony. Would it be remembered as vividly as it is today? Or is its power tied to the fact that it was never completed? Now, turn that thought inward. What if the things you regret leaving unfinished, the paths you didn't take, the words you didn't say aren't failures, but part of the unique composition of your life? What if, Instead of chasing completion, you embraced the ongoing melody. Tonight, as you lie in bed, think about the things in your life that remain open-ended. The dreams that never quite came true, the stories that didn't get a proper ending, the notes of your own life symphony still hanging in the air. Instead of seeing them as failures, see them as possibilities. Because sometimes the most powerful things are the ones left unfinished. The escape paradox. You're running, not physically perhaps, but mentally, emotionally desperately trying to get away from something. A memory, a regret, a feeling that lingers in the back of your mind, like a shadow following your every step. You tell yourself that if you can just move forward, if you can just forget, you'll be free. But the more you run, the more the thing you're escaping clings to you. No matter how far you go, it remains just as close. This is the escape paradox, the unsettling reality that the more we try to outrun something, the more it follows us. The past, the pain, the unresolved emotions, we think we can leave them behind, but they stay tethered to us as if the very act of escape strengthens their grip. Running without moving. Imagine a person standing on the shore of a vast ocean. They're terrified of drowning, so they sprint inland, away from the waves. But with each step, the fear doesn't diminish, it only grows. They find themselves haunted by thoughts of the ocean, even in places where the waves can no longer reach them. It is as if the ocean exists not just in the world, but within them. In psychology, this is known as ironic process theory. The more you try to suppress a thought, the stronger it becomes. If you tell yourself, "Don't think about the ocean," what happens? You think about the ocean. If you try to forget someone who hurt you, you might find their face appearing in your dreams. The attempt to erase something from your mind paradoxically embeds it deeper. Escape, then, becomes an illusion. It offers the promise of freedom, but often delivers the oppositean obsession with the very thing we are trying to leave behind. The shadow that follows. Think of someone trying to move on from a painful breakup. They change cities, cut contact, remove every trace of their past relationship. And yet, despite all efforts, the memories return unbidden, unwelcome. They meet new people, but somehow the past lingers in every conversation, every comparison. The harder they try to forget, the more it dominates their mind. Why does this happen? Because escape is not the same as resolution. Running does not mean healing. The past does not disappear simply because we refuse to look at it. If anything, avoidance strengthens the chains that bind us to it. In many ways, our pain is like a shadow. It moves when we move. It stretches, distorts, sometimes shrinks, but it never truly leaves. And just like a shadow, the only way to truly escape is not to run, but to turn and face the light. The more you avoid, the more it controls you. There is an old Zen story of a man who was chased by a tiger. He ran through the forest, desperate to escape, but no matter how fast he sprinted, the tiger remained right behind him. Exhausted, he stumbled upon a wise monk sitting beneath a tree. "Please," he gasped, "help me! A tiger is chasing me!" The monk looked at him calmly and said, "Stop running, turn around, and see if the tiger is real." Trembling, the man did as he was told, and when he turned, the tiger was gone. This is the nature of the escape paradox. Sometimes what we are running from is not real in the way we imagine it to be. It is a fear, a memory, a story we tell ourselves. And in running, we give it power. We let it define us. But when we stop and turn to face it, we realize that the fear itself was feeding on our avoidance. The false freedom of running. Some people spend their whole lives running. They change jobs, change relationships, move from city to city, always searching for a new beginning that never quite comes. They think, if I can just start over, everything will be different. But no matter how many fresh starts they create, they carry the same unresolved emotions, the same insecurities, the same fears, because the real problem was never the place or the people. It was what they were unwilling to face within themselves. Escaping can feel like freedom, but in truth, it often becomes another kind of prison. Imagine trying to escape your own reflection. You move, and it moves with you. You turn away, and it's still there. The only way to truly be free is not to run, but to accept what you see. The illusion of distance. Think about a song that reminds you of a painful time in your life. Perhaps it was playing during a breakup, a loss, or a difficult moment. At first, you avoid it at all costs. You skip it when it comes on the radio. You tell yourself you never want to hear it again. But one day, months or even years later, it plays unexpectedly in a cafe, and something strange happens. You feel, okay, the pain has softened. You listen, and while the memory remains, it no longer has power over you. This is what happens when we stop running. We give ourselves the space to process, to heal. The thing we feared, the thing we tried so hard to escape, loses its grip on us not because we erased it, but because we made peace with it. How do we stop running? The escape paradox teaches us that true freedom does not come from distance, but from understanding. Instead of trying to escape your fears, ask yourself, why am I afraid? What am I running from? What would happen if I stopped? Instead of avoiding memories, ask, what lesson can I take from this? What part of this experience do I need to acknowledge? Instead of running from discomfort, try stepping into it. Feel the fear, the sadness, the regret not to dwell in it, but to understand it. It is only when we stop running that we realize we were never truly being chased. The quiet liberation of acceptance. Imagine standing in front of the ocean again, but this time you do not run. You let the waves come. You feel the water touch your feet. You watch the tide move in and out, and slowly something shifts. You realize the ocean was never your enemy. The fear was not in the water, it was in your resistance to it. The past is like the ocean. It cannot be outrun, but it can be understood. It will always be there, stretching out endlessly behind you, but you do not have to let it dictate your path. The escape paradox reminds us that the only true escape is not to run, but to stand still, to let go of resistance, to understand that what we flee from is often not as terrifying as we once believed. And when we do this, something incredible happens. The past stops chasing us. The fear fades. And for the first time in a long while, we feel truly free. The immortal moment paradox. You sit by the window, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The sky is a breathtaking canvas of gold and deep indigo, the air thick with the last warmth of the day. For a moment, time feels suspended, like the world itself is holding its breath. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the moment is gone. The light fades, the darkness settles, and the world moves on. Or does it? This is the immortal moment paradox, the idea that while time moves forward, certain moments seem to last forever. They carve themselves into our consciousness so deeply that, in some strange way, they never truly pass. Some moments vanish the second they occur, slipping through our fingers like grains of sand. Others, however, stay with us for years, decades, perhaps even lifetimes. They resurface in our memories unexpectedly, triggered by a song, a scent, a fleeting déjà vu. But if the past is gone, how can a moment still exist? And if time never stops, why do some experiences feel like they never end? The time warp of experience. Imagine standing in front of a vast mountain range. You take a deep breath, and for a split second, you feel a profound connection with the universe. The moment is fleeting, but it stays with you, buried in your mind like a relic from another life. Now compare that to an ordinary day, waking up, checking your phone, going through the motions of daily life. If asked about it years later, you'd struggle to recall a single detail. It's as if it never even happened. Yet both moments lasted the same amount of time. This is the paradox. If all moments are measured equally, why do some stretch into eternity while others vanish? The answer lies in how we experience time, not in how it actually passes. The fluid nature of time. Physicists have long debated the nature of time. Is it an absolute force, steadily moving forward like an unstoppable river? Or is it something more flexible, more subjective in experience, shaped by perception? Albert Einstein's theory of relativity suggests that time is not fixed. A person traveling near the speed of light experiences time differently than someone standing still. In other words, time bends and stretches depending on circumstances. And it's not just physics or minds also distort time. Think about the last time you were in danger. A car swerved towards you, or you tripped and fell. In those few seconds, everything seemed to slow down. You remember every detail vividly: the smell of the air, the pulse in your veins, the exact angle of the falling motion. Now, contrast that with a 5-hour car ride across an empty highway. It felt like nothing. No matter how long you sat there, the hours disappeared without leaving a mark. So time isn't just something that ticks away on a clock. It's an experience, one that can be stretched, compressed, or even frozen. The eternal imprint of moments. Certain experiences carve themselves into our souls so deeply that they transcend time itself. A first love, a heartbreaking loss, the moment you held your child for the first time, the day you realized something profound about yourself. We don't just remember these moments, we relive them. The person sitting on the beach watching the waves at 25 is the same person who sits by a different sea at 50, lost in the exact same feeling. Time has passed, but the moment remains, suspended in the mind like a photograph pinned to eternity. This is why we feel nostalgia so deeply. It's not just a longing for the past, it's proof that certain moments never truly fade. And this raises an unsettling question. If moments can outlive us, do we ever truly leave the past behind? The paradox of timelessness. There's a strange contradiction at play. We live in a universe ruled by time. Every second ticks by, unstoppable. Our bodies age, our surroundings change, the people we love come and go. And yet, within that constant motion, certain things remain untouched. Consider an old song from your childhood. You haven't heard it in years, but one day it plays unexpectedly. In an instant, you're back in your childhood bedroom, feeling the same emotions, seeing the same colors in your mind's eye. It's as if you never left. If time is truly linear, why does it allow us to step back into a moment decades after it occurred? Can we control immortal moments? If some moments become timeless, can we create them on purpose? The truth is, most of us don't realize a moment is immortal while we're in it. It's only later, in reflection, that we understand its significance. A normal afternoon walk with a loved one might seem mundane until that person is gone, and that memory becomes sacred. A casual conversation might feel forgettable until years later, when it suddenly holds profound meaning. We don't choose which moments become eternal. They choose us. But we can become more aware. By slowing down and truly experiencing life, we give moments a better chance of embedding themselves deeply. The more present we are, the more likely we are to capture time in a way that defies its passing. The fear of losing time. At its heart, the immortal moment paradox isn't just about memory. It's about our relationship with time itself. We fear that life is slipping away too quickly, that we'll wake up one day, old and regretful, wondering where all the years went. But this paradox offers us a strange comfort. Perhaps time doesn't truly take everything away. Perhaps certain moments, certain feelings, certain loves, certain revelations never die. And if that's true, then maybe life isn't as fleeting as we fear. Living in the immortal present. The paradox reminds us that the most meaningful moments of our lives are not measured in minutes or hours, but in depth. The key to truly living is not to count the days, but to make the days count. So, the next time you feel the wind brush against your skin, or hear laughter that makes your heart ache with happiness, pause, stay in it. Let it imprint itself into your being. because even as the moment passes, it might just last forever. The moving stillness paradox. Somewhere in the heart of a bustling city, you stand at a crowded intersection. The world around you is in constant motion, cars speeding past, people walking briskly, advertisements flickering on giant screens. Everything is moving, yet you feel a strange sense of stillness, as if, despite all the chaos, something within you remains untouched by time. At the same moment, on the other side of the world, a lone traveler sits at the edge of a vast desert. There is no movement here, just endless stretches of golden sand, an occasional breeze shifting grains from one place to another. And yet, even in this silence, things are changing. The dunes are sculpting themselves anew. The sun is sinking lower, and time is quietly carrying everything forward. This is the moving stillness paradox, the idea that even in stillness, change is always happening, and even in motion, something within us remains untouched. It is the realization that life is both ever moving and eternally still at the same time. The illusion of motion. We often think of movement as something external, a train rushing past, a river flowing downstream, the hands of a clock ticking forward. But what if movement is not just about physical displacement? What if stillness and movement are not opposites, but the same thing viewed from different angles? Imagine sitting in a plane flying at high altitude. From the window, the world below blurs by at incredible speed. Yet inside the cabin, everything feels still. You sip your coffee, read a book, and barely feel the velocity at which you're traveling. Now, take the opposite scenario. Imagine you are deep in meditation, sitting in absolute silence. No movement, no distractions. Yet inside your mind, thoughts swirl like a storm. Memories surface, emotions shift, and the very fabric of your consciousness is in motion. How can something be still and moving at the same time? This paradox challenges our understanding of what it means to move and what it means to be still. It suggests that the more we look for stillness, the more we notice movement. And the more we chase movement, the more we realize that some things never change. The river that never stops. The ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus once said, "You cannot step into the same river twice. The water is constantly flowing, shifting, and changing." The river you stepped into a moment ago is not the same river you step into now. But here's the paradox. The river itself remains. It is always changing, yet it is always the river. Life works in much the same way. You are not the same person you were yesterday. Your thoughts evolve, your cells regenerate, your experiences shape you. Yet, despite all of this change, there is something about you that feels constant, something that has remained unchanged since childhood. So which is it? Are we changing, or are we staying the same? The moving stillness paradox suggests that we are doing both at once. We are reverse always flowing, yet always whole. The stillness within motion. Some of the greatest athletes, dancers, and martial artists describe a phenomenon called flow state, a feeling of effortless movement, where action and awareness merge into one. In these moments, even at the height of motion, they feel an inner stillness, a deep calm at the center of the action. Consider a surfer riding a massive wave. The water roars around them, the wind rushes past, their body moves with precision. But in their mind, everything is still. No thoughts, no distractions, just pure presence. Or think of a violinist in the middle of a passionate performance. Their fingers move rapidly, their bow glides across the strings, yet their mind is in a place of absolute focus. The paradox reveals itself here. The faster we move, the more we access a kind of inner stillness. In moments of intense action, we don't feel chaotic. We feel more alive, more centered than ever before. This is why people seek adventure, extreme sports, and creative pursuits. Not for the movement itself, but for the stillness that movement brings. The motion within stillness. Now, consider the opposite. moments of complete stillness that are full of movement. You sit on the porch, watching the sunset. Nothing is happening, yet inside, your mind is active. You reflect on memories, on choices, on the passage of time. Even though your body remains motionless, your inner world is full of movement. Or think of a frozen lake in the dead of winter. Its surface appears solid, unmoving. But beneath the ice, water continues to flow, unseen currents weaving their way through the depths. In nature, nothing is ever truly still. A mountain that appears eternal is actually shifting, eroding, changing over centuries. The very cells in your body, even as you sleep, are constantly renewing themselves. Stillness, then, is not the absence of motion, it is simply a different kind of movement, one that happens too slowly or too subtly for us to perceive. The meditation of life. Buddhist philosophy often speaks of the observer within a part of us that remains unchanged, even as the world shifts around us. Imagine sitting by a train track, watching cars speed past. You can get caught up in the blur, trying to track every movement, or you can step back and simply observe. When you become the observer, movement no longer disturbs you. You see change happening, but you remain still inside. This is the essence of the moving stillness paradox. Life moves, yet something within us watches it all unfold. The practice of meditation teaches this truth. People who meditate don't stop thoughts from coming, they simply stop chasing them. They realize that no matter how much the mind moves, there is always a still point beneath it. The dance of change and stability. So, how do we reconcile this paradox in our daily lives? First, by understanding that movement and stillness are not enemies, they are dance partners. The waves crash, but the ocean remains. The seasons change, but the sky is still the sky. Second, by recognizing that true peace does not come from eliminating movement, but from finding stillness within it. Instead of fighting change, we learn to flow with it. Instead of resisting time, we embrace its passing with awareness. And finally, by remembering that our greatest moments of motion often lead to our deepest moments of stillness. The more fully we engage with life, the more we touch something timeless within us. A final thought. Tonight, as you lie in bed, listening to the soft hum of the night around you, let this paradox settle into your thoughts. Your body is still, but life is moving. Your thoughts are moving, but a part of you is still. Everything is changing, yet something in you remains. The world never stops, yet you can always find a moment of stillness. And in this realization, you finally understand. Stillness and motion are one and the same. The truth paradox. You sit in a quiet cafe, sipping coffee, as you scroll through the day's news. Every headline claims to reveal the truth about politics, about science, about human nature. But as you dig deeper, contradictions emerge. One source claims something as fact, while another insists the opposite. A friend shares a story online, swearing by its authenticity, only for you to later find out it was false. And so you wonder, what is truth? If truth is supposed to be absolute, why does it seem so fluid? If truth exists, why do people disagree on it so passionately? This is the truth paradox. The strange reality that truth, something we depend on to be solid and clear, can often feel uncertain, subjective, and even elusive. We are told to seek the truth, but what happens when different people's truths contradict each other? The fragile nature of truth. From childhood, we are taught that truth is simple. Something is either true or false. A red light means stop. The sun rises in the east. 2 + 2 = 4. These are facts, and facts are truth. But as we grow older, we start to see the cracks. Two people watch the same event, but recall it differently. Scientists debate theories that once seemed certain. A historical figure, once celebrated, is later condemned. The very definition of truth begins to wobble, no longer as stable as we once thought. If truth is real, why does it seem to shift over time? Why do people with the same access to information come to completely different conclusions? The truth paradox asks us, is truth something we discover or something we create? The subjectivity of truth. Imagine two hikers standing at opposite sides of a massive mountain. One describes it as steep and covered in dark, jagged rocks. The other, looking at the same mountain from a different angle, sees rolling green hills and gentle slopes. Both are describing the same mountain. And yet, their truths about it seem entirely different. Truth often works like this. Two people can experience the same situation and walk away with completely different understandings. A heated argument where one person felt attacked may have been, to the other, a simple discussion. A childhood memory shared between siblings may seem wildly different depending on who is recalling it. Is truth an objective reality, or is it colored by perspective? The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once argued that there are no absolute truths, only interpretations. Every fact, every experience, every belief is filtered through the mind of the person perceiving it. And if truth depends on perception, can it ever be truly objective? The evolution of truth. Truth is not just shaped by perspective, it is shaped by time. Imagine a person from the 1600s looking up at the sky. They would confidently tell you that the earth is the center of the universe, that the sun and stars revolve around us. This was the truth of their time, supported by scholars, religious leaders, and centuries of belief. To say otherwise was to challenge reality itself. Yet, today, we laugh at the idea. Science has proven otherwise. The earth moves around the sun. The truth changed. But did truth really change? Or did we simply update our understanding of it? Consider medical science. Centuries ago, doctors believed illnesses were caused by imbalances in bodily fluids and treated patients with bloodletting. Today, this idea is absurd. New discoveries have rewritten old truths. So, if truth can change with time, was the old truth ever truly true? This paradox forces us to ask, how many of today's accepted truths will be laughed at in the future? How many things we believe in with absolute certainty will one day be proven wrong? The social construction of truth. Some truths seem universal. We all agree that the sky is blue, that fire is hot, that gravity pulls objects downward. But not all truths are this simple. Consider history. It is often said that history is written by the victors. The same war can be told in completely different ways depending on who is telling it. One nation's hero is another nation's villain. One generation's truth becomes the next generation's lie. Consider morality. Some cultures believe in strict individual freedoms, while others emphasize collective responsibility. Some societies see arranged marriage as a violation of personal choice, while others see it as a time-honored tradition. Who decides what is true when it comes to human values? Truth, in many cases, is not just something that existed, is something that societies create, agree upon, and enforce. And yet, if something must be collectively agreed upon to be considered true, can it really be called objective truth? The paradox of absolute truth. For centuries, philosophers have debated whether absolute truth exists. Some argue that there must be fundamental truths that are unchangeable mathematical truths, scientific laws, and logical principles. Others argue that everything, even logic itself, is subject to interpretation and perspective. Here's a paradoxical question. If absolute truth exists, how do we know what it is? If different cultures, experts, and individuals can all disagree on fundamental issues, how can anyone claim to possess the one, undeniable truth? And yet, if absolute truth doesn't exist, does that mean nothing is true at all? Does reality itself become meaningless? The emotional side of truth. Beyond logic and philosophy, Truth has an emotional weight. There are moments in life when we desperately seek truth. A betrayed lover wants to know the real reason their partner left. A grieving family searches for answers after a tragic accident. We believe that knowing the truth will bring us peace. But what happens when the truth is painful? What if the truth we seek is worse than the comforting lie we once believed? The truth paradox reminds us that while we think we want truth, we often only want truth that aligns with our expectations. The full, raw truth can be unsettling, disorienting, and even unbearable. This is why people sometimes cling to comforting falsehoods. It's why conspiracy theories flourish, why some people refuse to believe inconvenient facts, and why the most uncomfortable truths are often ignored. Living with the paradox. So how do we navigate a world where truth is uncertain, subjective, and ever-changing? Perhaps the answer lies in humility. Instead of clinging to our truths as absolute, we can acknowledge that our understanding is always evolving. We can hold our beliefs with confidence, but remain open to new evidence. Instead of assuming that others are wrong when they disagree with us, we can try to see their perspective, just as the hikers looking at the same mountain from different angles. And instead of fearing the possibility that some truths are unknowable, we can embrace the mystery. We can accept that some questions will never have final answers, and that, too, is a kind of truth. A final thought. As the night deepens and you settle into bed, let the truth paradox rest in your thoughts. What if everything you believe to be true could change tomorrow? What if the truth you seek is different from the truth someone else holds? And what if, in the end, the only real truth is that truth itself is always shifting, always evolving, just like us? Perhaps the greatest wisdom is not in finding an absolute truth, but in learning to live with its contradictions. The final question paradox. The night is quiet, the room is still, and your mind drifts through the echoes of the paradoxes we've explored. Yet, even as we approach the final moments of this journey, a lingering thought remains. Is there ever a final answer? Or do all questions lead only to more questions? This is the final question paradox, the unsettling realization that every answer breeds another question, that no matter how much we learn, there will always be more unknowns waiting just beyond the horizon. It is the paradox of infinite inquiry, of chasing certainty yet never quite reaching it. It is the paradox that whispers, what if the very nature of knowledge is that it never ends? The never-ending quest for knowledge. From the moment we begin to think, we begin to ask, why is the sky blue? Where does the sun go at night? What happens after we die? The human mind is a machine built for curiosity, forever reaching, forever searching. Science, philosophy, history, every field of human thought is an attempt to answer questions. And yet, for every discovery, a new mystery unfolds. We learn about the origins of the universe, only to wonder what came before the Big Bang. We decode the human genome, only to ask what consciousness really is. We build artificial intelligence, only to question the nature of intelligence itself. The closer we get to an answer, the more we realize how much we still don't know. The illusion of certainty dissolves, revealing only deeper layers of complexity. This paradox tells us that the final question, the ultimate truth, may never be within reach. The horizon that never arrives. Imagine walking toward the horizon. With every step, it seems just within reach. Yet no matter how far you go, it remains as distant as ever. Knowledge works the same way. We strive toward a final truth, a grand unifying answer, but it always eludes us. History is filled with those who believe they had reached the pinnacle of knowledge. Once, people thought the earth was the center of the universe. Once, scientists believed atoms were indivisible. Once, entire civilizations accepted that their gods had created the world exactly as they saw it. Each time, what was once considered the final answer was only another stepping stone in an endless path. If this is true, then what does it mean for our pursuit of understanding? If every answer leads only to more questions, is knowledge an endless spiral? Do we ever truly learn anything? Or do we simply replace one uncertainty with another? The search for meaning. For many, the idea that we may never find a final answer is unsettling. We want to believe that there is a grand, ultimate truth waiting for us, whether in science, philosophy, religion, or personal wisdom. We want to believe that if we just ask the right question, we will finally arrive at a complete, unshakable understanding. But the final question paradox suggests that this may never happen. There may be no final theory of everything, no absolute certainty, no last word on the nature of existence. This raises a troubling thought. If the quest for answers has no endpoint, then what is the purpose of asking at all? Yet, perhaps this paradox does not mean that knowledge is futile. Perhaps the beauty of the journey is not in reaching a destination, but in traveling the road itself. If there were a final answer, if we could know everything with absolute certainty, then all curiosity would end. The thrill of discovery, the joy of learning, the drive to explore these would all cease to exist. Perhaps the greatest truth is that the search itself gives life meaning. The questions that define us. Think of the most important moments in your life, the ones that shaped who you are. They likely weren't defined by the answers you had, but by the questions you asked. Who do I want to become? What do I truly believe? What do I want out of this brief existence? It is not answers, but questions that define us. Every great advancement in history, every personal revelation, every moment of growth each was sparked by a question. The act of questioning is what makes us human. Some questions can never be answered, and yet they still matter. Perhaps we will never know the ultimate nature of reality, but the pursuit of that truth still drives science forward. Perhaps we will never fully understand love, but that doesn't stop us from experiencing it deeply. Perhaps we will never solve the mystery of what happens after death, but that doesn't stop us from pondering the value of life. Even if the final answer is forever out of reach, the questions we ask along the way shape who we are and how we see the world. Embracing the mystery. So here we are, at the end of this journey, only to find that the final paradox brings us back to the beginning. We have explored time, identity, choice, existence, and meaning, and yet, with every paradox unraveled, more questions have appeared. We are left not with certainty, but with wonder. But maybe that is the greatest gift of all. What if we stopped fearing the unknown and instead embraced it? What if, instead of seeking finality, we found joy in the infinite possibilities of inquiry? What if the beauty of existence is not in discovering one final truth, but in experiencing an endless dance of questions and discoveries? As you close your eyes tonight, let the weight of all these paradoxes settle into your mind, not as burdens, but as companions. The universe is vast, mysterious, and filled with questions that may never be fully answered. And yet, that is what makes it magnificent. You do not need to find the final answer. You only need to keep asking, keep wondering, and keep searching. For as long as you do, you are truly alive. Good night. Peace out.